Entertainment begins with a journey. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151 Green City. Putting aside matters of the fairy sword for a moment, Yukai put away his phone and went downstairs to chase Saoirse. Today was March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, Ireland's national holiday. Long before, the whole of Ireland had been warming up for the holiday, with the city visibly turning greener, with green walls and green streetlights. This country, once the Emerald Isle, had now become a veritable ocean of green. Everyone on the streets wore green, with Yukai being the least savvy, wearing a green tie over a white shirt. Perhaps only the Chinese had a problem with wearing green. If you saw someone wearing green clothes, pants, shoes, or even a green wig and hat, there was no doubt they weren't from China. If they were, they had a story to tell. Yukai and Saoirse were heading to Grafton Street to watch the St. Patrick's Day parade with their bandmates. The road had been closed, but the once traffic highway was spotless. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say it was spotless. A barrier had been erected overnight between the road and the highway, preventing countless tourists from swarming forward. It was a real squeeze. Even though the street below Saoirse's building wasn't a well-known thoroughfare, crowds of people, unable to find a good seat, thronged it. Some Irish people even painted their fair faces with green makeup. Happy laughter could be heard at any moment, and those participating in the event were all smiling. Perhaps even the most serious people wouldn't remain stern during such a festive occasion. What expression would Professor Sommerfeld have today? Trinity College had been on holiday since yesterday, for 3 days. If the professor had a wife, she'd surely have been dragged along to join in the festivities. I wonder what a smile would look like. If someone always had a stern face, the occasional smile would be quite frightening. Yukai and Saoirse didn't have that problem. Saoirse always had a smile on her face, even facing setbacks with a smile. Yukai, on the other hand, had grown accustomed to smiling. His smile was now quite charming. It was one of his most effective communication tools. Besides those waiting to watch the parade, another group was joyfully flocking to the City Hall, the starting point of today's parade. They were there to join the parade, to march through the streets of Dublin with a procession. Green swarmed everywhere. Green hats, green hair, green clothes, green necklaces, everywhere the eye could see was a sea of green. Yukai suddenly realized that when green is concentrated and allowed to flow, it can also create a festive atmosphere. Hurry up, Saoirse said to Yukai. Yukai also felt a sense of unease. If there were already so many people here, how many more would be on Grafton Street? That was the most famous street in all Ireland. He stepped past Saoirse and took her hand as they walked quickly down the street. Saoirse suddenly felt an inexplicable happiness. She had spent several 4th of July celebrations since arriving in Dublin. In the past, she had watched the parades with her bandmates, and even participated in them. Although lively, the surroundings were inevitably lonely. But this time, someone held her hand and walked through the thorns for her. Was this what it felt like to have a prince? Yukai didn't notice the girl behind him sighing. He wanted to get to Grafton Street quickly, otherwise he would miss the parade. Before leaving, Yukai announced on Weibo that he would be doing a live broadcast to show everyone the Irish Green Hat Festival. But looking at the current situation, it was very likely that the beginning of the parade would have passed Grafton Street by the time they got there. The journey, which originally took half an hour, doubled. After nearly an hour, the two finally arrived at the door of the Love Band Tavern. Several familiar friends had already taken the best seats. Kamina was surprised to see Saoirse and said, "I thought you wouldn't come. There are so many people today. The number of tourists is really increasing year by year." A handsome man in the band said, "Won't your shop be doing better this way? Go back and guard the shop. There are so many people, and if you don't, your merchandise will be gone." "Tisk, I'm closed." Kamina saw that Yukai wasn't wearing enough green, so she pulled out the same green cat ears from her pink backpack and said, "Here, you guys, they look great." Saoirse took them without a second thought. "Okay, thank you, Kamina. I don't need them, do I?" Yukai quickly refused. He had never liked wearing green since he was a child. He had always preferred black and white. Colorful clothes had never suited him. It was just his personality. He didn't have a strong desire to show off. If it weren't for his outstanding appearance, Yukai might have been lost in the crowd of ordinary people. Saoirse didn't know the meaning of green in China. She took the green, fluffy cat ear headdress Kanna had given Yukai and said, "No, come here, I'll put them on you. No, don't even think about it. Come on." Haha, why don't you like green? She happily played hide and seek with Yukai, chasing him whenever he dodged, and quickly running away. But it was the same everywhere now. The spots closest to the road were already taken. Yukai could already hear the distant sounds of Irish bagpipes, so he took the initiative to end the chase, snatched the 2 green ears, and said, "Stop playing. The parade is about to start, and I promised to live stream it for my friends in China. Then put them on." Saoirse raised her arms, waving the green ears in front of Yukai. Yukai grabbed both ears and said, "Come here, I'll put them on for you." She was delighted and stood in front of Yukai, letting him put the green, fluffy cat ears on his head. Then she put them on herself, pulled out her phone, and said, "Are you satisfied? I'm going to live stream now, or I'll miss the parade." Saoirse had accomplished her goal, so she stopped making a fuss and watched Yukai take out his phone and start the live stream. The netizens in the live stream were already impatient. Even with the screen black, they were still spamming comments. Many were saying, "Don't wait. Shui just stood us up again. He won't be live streaming. Nonsense." 5 seconds later, Yukai's face appeared in the live stream. "Let's be honest. I wasn't late today, was I? And I didn't say when the live stream would start. Why do you think I stood you up? Brother Kai is here. Brother Kai, there's Fairy Sword playing on TV. I want to watch both. What should I do?" Yukai saw the comments and replied, "Then you can watch the live stream on TV. I'll wait to watch it a second time later. Anyway, remember to boost my ratings. I'm rich." He didn't hide the fact that many people online knew Yukai had signed a profit-sharing agreement. There's another chapter coming up soon, and K-Try is still typing. If you have any spare recommendation tickets, please vote. It's not as useful now as before, but it sometimes helps. Besides, if you don't vote for the free tickets, they'll be gone tomorrow. Chapter 152 Cuckold Day. Those ears are so cute, Brother Kai, why aren't you wearing a green hat? Look how good the people around you look in green hats. Wow, so green, stop it, Yukai said helplessly. If Saoirse hadn't insisted, he would never have worn those green cat ears. It would ruin his image, okay? In the eyes of his fans, he's always been cool and handsome. Fans. Yukai heard the people up ahead start cheering and switched his camera to the front. Amidst the cheers, the parade that had begun at City Hall finally reached Grafton Street. People on the street were shouting like crazy, some blowing trumpets that grew longer, others holding high Irish flags and waving them vigorously. In any country, National Day is the most important holiday for those who love their country. At the front of the parade was a vintage green car with Irish flags on both sides. Yukai was 24 years old, and the car was probably 2 wheels older than him. It was at least 50 years old. It looked a lot like the vehicles driven by Japanese people in anti-Japanese war films. Instead of a cargo box, it towed a wooden plank. An Irish band, using speakers, played beautiful Irish music. Of course, with the addition of bagpipes, any song became thoroughly Irish, so it wasn't surprising that Yukai called it a rogue instrument. The band members wore traditional attire, though not entirely green, at least not the skirts, they were black and white plaid. Although they wore skirts, the band was all men. The custom of men wearing skirts dates back to ancient times, and certainly popular in China. Back then, they weren't called skirts, but shangs. The top was a dress, the bottom a skirt, and the two together were called yishangs. It's worth noting that men have been wearing skirts for hundreds of years longer than women. Behind this green vehicle came the Green Hat Festival Parade, featuring elderly people driving their own modified vehicles and young people cosplaying in quirky costumes. The parade became the stars, happily garnering everyone's attention. Many tourists were filming with their phones. Sometimes, when the parade participants got excited, they would run to their phones and make strange faces. As the procession faded, they would run back to their previous positions. The parade was primarily composed of elderly people and children, and the performances were varied. Some drove tractors, while others led their pet dogs to be reviewed by the roadside residents. Yukai's favorite was a Shar-Pei, dressed in a green cotton jacket and a green top hat, striding proudly in a straight line. Sometimes the hat would slide down a little, covering its eyes, but it didn't affect the dog's walk at all. Her owner, A plump woman in a black, long-sleeved shirt with a giant lucky clover on her chest would reach out and pull the dog's hat up a little. But after a few dozen meters, the hat would slide down again. Saoirse enviously said, "Why are other people's pets always so adorable? Have you ever had a pet?" Yukai asked. Saoirse didn't have any pets at home, and they had never discussed pets. Yukai loves cats and dogs, and if he could have one, he'd love to have one. "I had a dog before." Netizens heard Yukai talking to a girl, and the air in the liver stream began to smell like lemons. Cage is indeed on a date in Ireland. Looking for a boyfriend's perspective. "I told you, Shui J has a foreign girlfriend. I'm so jealous." "I have nothing else to say. I'm so jealous of Cage's girlfriend. She must be so happy to have a husband like that." "Let's watch the parade," Yukai said during the liver stream. A group of veterans dressed in ancient military uniforms approached, their beards long and their average age estimated to be around 80. But seniors abroad are incredibly energetic and are a major force in many activities. If you had them sitting in the shade, drinking tea and playing chess, they wouldn't last more than 2 or 3 days. There were also teenagers in baseball uniforms, handsomely swinging baseball bats that looked like balloons as they walked. Drivers of classic cars honked their horns from time to time, letting you experience sounds lost in history. Behind the motorcade was a cavalry contingent. The riders, dressed in European aristocratic attire and wearing hats adorned with chicken feathers, rode slowly past on tall horses. There were ancient pirates, modern ballet. Various gifts were distributed from time to time during the parade. There were small balls, chocolates, lollipops, pencils, green glass necklaces, t-shirts, and so on. However, all these items were snatched up by those standing in the front rows. As the saying goes, those who are close to the water get the moon first. This is exactly what happened. People like Yukai, standing in the second or third rows, could only watch. Even if a beautiful woman participating in the parade wanted to throw a gift to Yukai, it would be snatched away by those in front. The young lady gave Yukai an apologetic smile and continued on her way. "I'm jealous. I wish I had Brother Kai's popularity with women. Why would I worry about being single at almost 20? Did my 30-year-old self say anything? What a lively festival. Do we Chinese have festivals like this? Hasn't a person above ever been to a temple fair? There are so many activities like this during the Chinese New Year. I guess the Chinese really love excitement." The netizens were happy. Yukai kept holding up his phone, and their eyes were slightly higher than his. Yukai and Saoirse were further back, so his viewing experience was definitely not very good. Saoirse was even more uncomfortable. She wasn't even as tall as Yukai. "Would you like to move forward?" Yukai asked. Saoirse shook her head and said, "I don't need to. It's not my first time seeing this anyway." "What about you?" In front of Yukai was a mother with her 6 or 7-year-old daughter. Next to them were some frantic tourists. Yukai didn't want to be squeezed in, so he shook his head as well. "Never mind, let's just stay here." In fact, many of the people in the front row were children. Many Irish people would even offer their seats in the front row to these children, regardless of their nationality. Others were tourists, pushing forward to get some souvenirs. These people were mostly Asian, Chinese, Korean, from island nations, Indian. Yukai completely understood their feelings. Cultural differences create a kind of excitement and beauty, and Yukai himself was no exception. Whenever he saw European architecture, so different from the Chinese style, he would be so excited that he wanted to create a work of art. Let alone these ordinary people. In this festive atmosphere, people from Europe and America were a little more calm, as such events were commonplace for them. The little girl in front of Yukai was truly a gift-giving expert. She was sweet-talking, cute, and dressed adorably. Whenever someone passed by with a gift, she would sweetly call them brother or sister, and anyone who noticed her would generously give her a small gift. Gradually, the little girl became the wealthiest person in the area, her green plush sweatshirt pockets overflowing with gifts. Making up for the day before yesterday. "Please give me votes, my grades have dropped, please give me encouragement." Chapter 153 Gift. Actually, the green hat day I've been talking about on Weibo is actually St. Patrick's Day, commemorating a Catholic missionary. Yukai looked at the smiling crowd marching past and said to his netizens, "I thought the parade would include the missionary's story, so I could share some information about this holiday, but it seems not." He was about to introduce Patrick to the netizens, but the little girl in front of him turned around. Her golden hair was combed up, revealing a delicate forehead. Her sapphire eyes looked at the small gift in her hand with reluctance, but she still shared what she had with the children around her. Most of the gifts went to the children, but perhaps because Yukai was a foreigner, he also got some. "Brother, hello." She called to Yukai. Yukai pointed his phone camera at the ground, half crouched, and said, "What a little cutie." "Hello, you too." "Thank you, brother. These are for you." The little girl handed Yukai the last 3 gifts she had left, a green necklace, a t-shirt with a lucky clover pattern, and a cool wallpaper. "I can't have them. You've given them all away. What are you going to do? You really like these, right?" The comments were almost overwhelming by then. Every time Yukai encountered such a special situation, he would put his phone aside. He wondered if they also wanted to see the little girl. His mind was exploding. What did the person talking to Yukai actually look like? "I'll have more," the little girl said. Then, without further ado, she placed the gifts in Yukai's arms. She was still reluctant to part with them. She had finally gotten so many good things, and now they were all gone. Her once bulging pockets were shriveled. After distributing the gifts to Yukai, the little girl scurried towards the railing, beginning a new round of gift-seeking. After observing the little girl's well-behaved appearance for a while, Yukai withdrew from the crowd. "Where are you going?" Saoirse asked. "Come on, go shopping with me." He loved this child. She was so well-behaved, not at all rambunctious. He wished his own children could be as well-behaved in the future. Yukai was disgusted by the mere thought of those half-grown brats he'd seen before. China's other problems could be solved slowly, but family education for children must learn from Western practices. According to Chinese tradition, reciprocity is the norm. So Yukai planned to give her a gift in return, but he didn't have any extra items on hand at the moment. A turquoise bracelet, a watch, a cell phone, a wallet, that was all he had, so he had to go to the supermarket. Fortunately, there weren't many people as headstrong as Canada, so most shops were still open. This was a world-class shopping district. If they were all closed, it would be a huge loss. However, shops were only open until 7:30 at most, and they were closed on weekends. Overall, the salary might not be high, but the benefits were definitely good. Yukai turned off his live stream and put his phone away before entering the supermarket. In foreign supermarkets, you can't record videos casually, otherwise, the staff might come over and ask you to leave. It was the rule, so it was best to abide by it. "Are you going to buy a gift for that little girl?" "What?" Saoirse asked, noticing that Yukai had stopped live streaming. "Barbie? Or maybe a stuffed animal?" Yukai recalled the scene just now. The little girl seemed quite fond of a white stuffed dog. So he decided to head straight for the toy section. Foreign toys aren't as cheap as they are in China. Copyrighted, genuine toys are no less expensive than ordinary household appliances. A Buzz Lightyear that costs 50 yuan in China would cost 3 times that abroad, and the symbol behind it would have to be changed to US dollars. Yukai chose a white Chow Chow half the height of a man. The Chow Chow is a Chinese breed, but it's not very well known in China, and few people are willing to keep one. However, Chow Chows are still very popular abroad. The parade continued to move slowly forward, and a steady stream of people continued to make their way to the city hall. Perhaps they would see them again in an hour or two. The sound of Irish bagpipes never stopped. The bagpipers were the mainstay of the parade. If you weren't attending the parade, you would never guess that so many people in Ireland could play the bagpipes. It even made Yukai wonder, do all Irish people not only tap dance but also play the bagpipes? When Yukai saw the little girl, she was reaching out to receive a piece of chocolate offered by someone. "Hi, little cutie," Yukai called out. She turned, saw Yukai, and exclaimed, "It's my brother from before. Wow, what a cute dog. This is for you." "Really? That's awesome." The little girl was delighted. She ran over to hug Yukai, who was half crouching on the ground, and kissed him on the cheek. Then she hugged the fluffy Chow Chow toy. Her mother came over, took the little girl in hand, and said, "How much is this? I'll pay for it." The woman was about 30 years old. Yukai didn't like to address young mothers like that. The word maid could easily make them sound old. Like the little girl, she had blonde hair, was thin, and had a few freckles on her face. "No need. She gave me something too. Look." Yukai showed her the small gifts the little girl had given him. Although they weren't very valuable, how many strangers in this world would willingly share their treasures with you? This was Yukai's most precious gift from his trip to Ireland. Gifts are valued for sentimental reasons, not monetary ones. After saying goodbye to the little girl, Yukai and Saoirse returned to the bar to join in the fun with a few friends. Seeing the gift Yukai was holding, someone wailed, "How did you get 3? They wouldn't give me any." Saoirse boasted, "This is from a little girl, Sean." The wailing grew louder, as if to say, even little girls are looking at faces. Kamina grabbed a lollipop given by the parade and stamped her foot, saying, "Damn it. They're not even letting children off the hook? No. We have to drink tonight." "No, no, no." Yukai quickly refused. Those with limited tolerance should never drink with the Irish. They're like drunkards. No matter how much they drink, they'll never get drunk. Anyway, Yukai wouldn't see them get drunk. But today was St. Patrick's Day. It was a day for cultural performances, parades, and gatherings. How could there be no drinking tonight? Chapter 154 Sniping Yukai. There's a persistent campaign within Yukai's fan group, but it's been elusive. It's called the Chance Encounter Plan, also known as the Sniper Plan. Fans rely on Yukai's Weibo posts, travel logs, and live streams to estimate his current location. Then, a group of bored, wealthy fans set out on a journey, hoping to stumble upon him. Perhaps sniper is a better word. While the campaign hasn't yet announced any rewards for stumbling upon Yukai, for them, simply meeting him is already a joy. And, most importantly, they're not short of money. Those who are short of money work in China, so how can they afford to travel abroad? Why is this plan so elusive? Visa processing in China takes a week, and even with expedited processing, it still takes 3 days. By the time they get their visas and fly to destination, Yukai isn't a statue, he's a moving being. Paris is so big, Australia is so vast, who knows where Yukai might end up next? But this time was different. Yukai's whereabouts had been revealed long beforehand, so his wealthy fans secured visas in advance and arrived in Dublin on March 17th, Ireland's most important day. Where would tourists be most likely to watch the Green Hat Festival parade? On Grafton Street, of course. The leader of this operation was Guan Zhuangxiu. She was a travel blogger, but not a travel blogger, she was a beauty blogger. As Yukai had said in a previous video, making money from traveling is difficult. But being a blogger offers more freedom. Once you earn money and stock up, you can travel around. And you can capture beautiful scenery and include it in your videos, the best of both worlds. Guan Zhuangxiu and 3 friends were walking down the street, watching the joyful parade and the lively crowds. Yukai had just turned off his live stream a dozen minutes earlier, and it wasn't because he was leaving. So, it was highly likely he hadn't left. The thought of seeing Yukai soon made Guan Zhuangxiu practically leap for joy. Calm down, calm down. I haven't seen him yet." Her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, picked it up, and asked, "How's it going? Did you find him?" "No, but I saw where Yukai used to live stream. There's a big supermarket not far behind, where Yukai used to live stream. My phone's almost dead, I'll have Brother Bing contact you later." "Okay." After hanging up, the girl behind her asked, "How's it going? Did you find the young man? Why did it feel like searching for a missing person?" Shaking her head, Guan Zhuangxiu shook off the dangerous thought and said, "Not yet. They just saw where Brother Kai used to live stream. They haven't found him yet, huh?" A handsome man in a black casual suit turned his back to them and waved his hands vigorously. Of course, he wasn't calling them, but rather rejecting the person standing in front of him. But the atmosphere seemed friendly, and everyone was laughing happily. A tall, thin figure, the clothes he'd seen during the live stream, and 2 little green ears. Finally found. Guan Zhuangxiu's heart was pounding. This was his idol. He sings beautifully, writes beautiful books, and most importantly, he's so handsome, so gentle, so elegant. But who's that person in front of the idol? Could it be the legendary foreign girlfriend? Oh my god. Holding hands. Guan Zhuangxiu quickly called out, "Brother Yi," and then trotted forward, holding onto her skirt. Hearing someone calling him in Chinese from behind, Yukai turned around. It was a girl wearing hanfu, Chinese traditional clothing. Unlike the pure green surrounding her, this girl's green was a more elegant shade of green. The silky green dress was embroidered with bird patterns and gold thread. Her hair was styled like that of an ancient girl. 3 people were following her, some holding cameras, others carrying large and small bags. Is this a film crew? Guan Zuixiu approached Yukai, her eyes filled with joy, and she spoke quickly. Brother Yi. I'm your fan. I followed you across 2 countries, and finally I've run into you. Huh? Yukai was stunned by her excitement, then realized she must be the one in the fan group who often threatened to attack him. He'd joined several large groups before, but later blocked them because they were too much trouble. Otherwise, whenever he opened his phone, he'd be bombarded with messages, all showing 99+. Take a break, you look tired. Yukai saw a girl who looked like an assistant carrying a backpack and asked, did you bring any water? Yes, I did. She handed the water to Guan Zuixiu and said to Yukai, Brother Kai, or, sorry, Brother Yi, I've gotten the habit. I'm also a fan of yours. Can you please sign an autograph? No problem. Yukai didn't consider himself an entertainment industry insider, but he was a public figure, so this wasn't surprising. It wasn't just singing a few songs or participating in a few entertainment events or variety shows that made him enter the entertainment industry. That would be too easy. Yukai made his money through his books and photography. There's a huge difference between being a reader and an entertainment industry fan. Are you a film crew? What are you shooting? Yukai signed autographs and took photos with them, curiously asking about their work. It definitely wasn't a movie, but probably some short videos. But traveling abroad to film videos like this puzzled Yukai. Do you guys make enough money to spend on this trip? There were 4 or 5 of them. Guan Zuixiu lifted a strand of her hair and said, I'm a makeup influencer, on Bilibili, just like you, Brother Yi. No wonder. But judging by the situation, she seems to be making quite a bit of money. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. This is Saoirse, my girlfriend. Hello. Guan Zuixiu felt a little desperate. Brother Kai really has a girlfriend. Netizens are telling the truth. Yukai had a soft spot for these people. Regardless of their motivations, just seeing them wearing these outfits while traveling abroad was enough to give them a thumbs up. Promoting Chinese culture was something Yukai had always wanted to do. He even considered writing a song about it, but after a long time, he only managed to come up with a half-ancient song called On Jupiter. Later, he wasn't satisfied, so he stopped writing songs. He'd wait until the time was right and he felt inspired. Oh, I need to call them. Guan Zuixiu almost forgot. After getting Yukai's autograph, she immediately pulled out her phone and pressed replay while explaining to Yukai. We're all in your fan group, Brother Yi. When we get to this street, we'll split up and walk. They should be on the other side, right? There should be about 4 or 5 of them. Guan Zuixiu still had to shoot some footage on Grafton Street for editing, so it wasn't convenient to be with the others. Chapter 155 I'm Still Young. Excluding Guan Zuixiu's team, there were 5 people left, 2 men and 3 women. Only one couple was a couple, the others had met through the fan group. However, the couple hadn't made much eye contact beforehand, and during introductions, the man was more enthusiastic, while the woman looked at her boyfriend with obvious disdain. It seemed this would be their last trip. The man was a reader of Yukai's novels, while the woman had fallen in love with him while watching a singer. They were essentially looks-only fans. These fans are devoted to whoever is handsome. A fan's affection for their idol can sometimes be like a romantic relationship. The more they invest, the more devoted they become, their idols becoming the most handsome. Otherwise, they could easily be seduced by some new, fresh-faced idol. This fan group sniping operation was a resounding success. Guan Zuixiu uploaded a photo of her and Yukai to her Bilibili post, which instantly garnered over 1,000 comments. Many people were wondering who this handsome, unattractive man was. Guan Zuixiu was no ordinary TikTok host. How could a TikTok host who could lead a team abroad to record videos be a complete failure? Her Bilibili followers totaled over 2 million, 10 times Yukai's. Yukai himself had tens of thousands of followers on Bilibili and was somewhat familiar with the revenue-sharing system. Guan Zuixiu earned an average of 4,000 to 5,000 yuan a day. And that was just from her video share. No wonder she had her own team. After hanging out with them for a few hours, they said goodbye as darkness fell. Back home, a smiling face from Guan Zuixiu appeared on WeChat. This was the first time Yukai had met such a famous fan. Yi, let's go. Saoirse said. Where to? A bar. The festive celebrations lasted 2 days, with various performances held by Dublin theatre troupes. Yukai even saw a Chinese Peking opera performance at a venue, but the tickets sold out quickly. A ballet, an amusement park, A movie. Saoirse made a dating list, and the two of them completed many of the items on it. There were still some things they couldn't do due to time constraints, but Easter was coming up soon. The Easter holiday was quite long, and with a weekend off, they could have a week of fun. The two agreed to complete a mission to travel to unfamiliar places together. Well, this mission was a bit new to Saoirse. As for Yukai, if Saoirse hadn't been on holiday, he'd still be in China, not leaving the country. When they left Ireland, the love band and Kanina also arrived at the airport. Kanina didn't have a boyfriend yet, and she kept arguing with Saoirse about wanting Yukai, but Saoirse always had a single response. Then you come. It was just a joke, but Saoirse's nonchalant attitude always made Kanina jump in anxiety. It was a slight. Regardless, over the few days, they had developed some feelings for each other. Although most of their interactions were spent drinking, they accepted Yukai without exception. They hugged everyone one by one, finally hugging Saoirse. It took a long time for Yukai to let go, and Saoirse couldn't help but push him away, saying, "If you delay any longer, the plane will have left." There were no direct flights from Ireland to China, so this flight had to go through Germany for a connecting flight. And, very unusually, Yukai didn't see a single Chinese person on the plane. Sitting next to Yukai was an old lady with glasses and white hair. The plane was getting farther and farther away from the island of Ireland. White clouds covered the Emerald Island, and when it broke through the clouds, all you could see was a vast ocean, and the sky was also deep blue. The plane was sandwiched in an extremely empty blue world. It takes a long time to fly from Europe to China, and Yukai planned to use this time to revise his new book. But it only takes 2 hours from Dublin to Germany, so he didn't take out his notebook, but asked the flight attendant to give him a blanket and lay down on the seat to rest, but he hardly got any sleep. "Are you also transiting in Germany?" asked the old lady. She didn't speak German, but highly recognizable American English. Are you American? Are you visiting Ireland?" "Oh, no, my husband is Irish, so I've been coming here every year for the past few years," she continued. "I saw you at the airport. Your girlfriend is so beautiful." "Thank you." The old lady looked at Yukai with great interest and said, "Where are you from?" "I'm Chinese." Love across borders is very romantic, isn't it? The old lady must have thought of her husband in Ireland. She came here alone every year, without anyone to accompany her. At her age, she couldn't be in a long-distance relationship like Yukai. Perhaps they had been married for half a century. Why did she come alone? Yukai felt that he had guessed most of it. "You're so old, why did you come to Ireland? You must have seen it all." "If I had to go to the same country every year by myself, I wouldn't be able to bear it." "That's not what you said." She agreed with Yukai, but obviously had her own explanation. "I'm half Irish, from the day I married my husband, even though we've spent our whole lives in the United States. When I went to Ireland, I wasn't in the mood for travel. My husband is buried in a small town cemetery in Ireland, and I can't let him go, so I come back every year." "I'm so sorry." Yukai didn't expect to step on this landmine. "No, you're right. I'm so old, I should be enjoying my retirement at home. But I always like to travel around and see the world by myself. When I boarded the plane in Ireland, the airline insisted on giving me a wheelchair. I was so angry, and I told them I was still young. But they said, 'Sorry, you're 80, it's the rules.' I told them, 'Fucking rules, ha ha ha.'" Yukai was amused by the grandmother. This foreign grandmother was so interesting. "Young lady, have you been to other countries?" Yukai followed up on her topic. He himself loved traveling. It wasn't just his job, it was his lifelong pursuit. He wanted to travel the world and experience the history of every nation, which was like a thick book. "Of course," the old lady said. "I've been to many countries. China, France, Egypt, Italy. These great cities are works of art in themselves, and they always bring me endless inspiration. Oh, and I love painting. I was a painter when I was young." She pulled out a photo on her phone, handed it to Yukai, and said, "Look, this is me when I was young." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156, The Steed Flies to Transform into a Dragon. This is a self-portrait. Unlike the paintings in the dark corridors of Trinity College, this one isn't set in a dimly lit interior, but on a sunlit seashore. A young woman sits on a wooden railing, clutching her sunhook with her hands, a bright smile on her face. It's different from those self-portraits, isn't it? This is my favorite. I don't like to follow conventions. To hell with those stuffy self-portraits. I want to paint like this. She flipped through her phone, revealing her other paintings. Her paintings are vibrant, but sunlight is the sole theme. Just like her personality, despite her advanced age, she still possesses the youthful energy of a bright young woman. These paintings are all excellent. They're not just beautiful, in Yukai's opinion, they're no less impressive than those in the collection of Versailles. Perhaps this old woman lacks fame compared to those painters. Or perhaps she's already famous, but Yukai just doesn't know her. She's not showing off these works. Painting is something she enjoys, and they capture her inspiration for a particular place. Sharing these things with her friend delighted her. Yukai didn't ask too many questions as he looked at the painting. It was romantic and languid. The Seine flowed slowly beneath the Pont d'Alais. This was Paris. The sun blazed brightly. Though the scene was a scene of yellow sand, Yukai seemed to hear a mysterious string music. This must have been painted in Egypt, right? Yukai asked. It's amazing, yes. Was it 20 years ago? Or 30 years ago? I can't remember, but it was definitely in Egypt. I rode a horse, and the tour guide took us to see a belly dancer. Yukai handed her his phone and found the painting he'd made when he moved. This is mine, he said. It's a little simpler than yours. She took it and exclaimed in amazement, what a beautiful horse. It was a galloping horse. The painting was nearly a meter long. Drawing a horse on such paper would look monotonous without meticulous attention to detail. Yukai meticulously painted every strand of its mane. The horse's unyielding expression leaped out, as if it were about to transform into a dragon. A Chinese person would easily associate this painting with a soaring steed, poised to transform into a dragon. In the lower right corner of the painting, there's a calligraphy inscription, a scholar must be broad-minded and resolute, for the responsibility is heavy and the road ahead is long. Heaven moves with vigor, and a gentleman should constantly strive for self-improvement. The spirit of self-improvement here reflects not just me, but the entire Chinese nation. Yukai explained that he created this painting not just to inspire himself, but to speak of the rising Chinese nation. The old woman's lack of knowledge of Chinese characters didn't stop her from admiring them. She kept saying, "It's so beautiful. I haven't seen such a beautiful Chinese painting in a long time." She handed Yukai back his phone. Sharing a common interest, the old woman became more talkative, recounting the Chinese painters she met in her youth, masters Yukai had long known, but none of them were alive. She was 80 years old, and many of her friends were gone. Even though many of my friends have passed away over the years, I haven't stopped traveling. When I was young, I dreamed of seeing the world, but then I realized it's so vast, so I could only visit well-known countries. What about you? You're so young, only 24, what's your dream? Yukai replied, traveling the world, of course. Really? She laughed, asking, what gave you such a crazy idea? Of course. I used to be a company employee, but my work made me feel bored and lost, so I thought, why not try something I've never thought of before? So I decided to travel the world. Chatting with the elderly woman was a pleasant experience. There wasn't a hint of impatience or boredom, and Yukai didn't sense the slightest generation gap, perhaps because they didn't talk about trivial matters. Love and dreams never go out of style, no matter the era. There was Wi-Fi on the plane, and Yukai added her as a Facebook friend. It seemed like everyone in every country, except China, used Facebook. Regardless, no matter where Yukai traveled, while he'd encounter some unique messaging apps, everyone had a Facebook account. 2 hours passed quickly. She was heading to the United States, while Yukai was connecting here to China. The two had to part ways there, and it was then that Yukai learned the old woman's name. Joan Hayworth. Yukai searched on Baidu and discovered she was quite famous. A renowned illustrator from the last century, she had created promotional posters for numerous films. She had created works for Audrey Hepburn's Roman Holiday and Elizabeth Taylor's Cleopatra. His connecting flight to China was an hour away, and Yukai bought many gifts at the duty-free shop at the German airport. German airports are full of Chinese language signs, making it easy for Chinese people to shop there. And to make it easier for Chinese people to buy things, all the shops here accept WeChat Pay, just like in China. Only when time was up did Yukai leave the airport and board his flight to China. This flight was going to be a long one. Yukai found his seat on the plane, put his belongings away, and lay down on his seat. Opposite him was a middle-aged man in a suit and tie, presumably a company manager. He didn't seem to want to talk either. He lay down, covered himself with a blanket, and fell asleep. It was so boring. The last flight had given Yukai such an interesting surprise. It had given him some hope for this long-distance companion he'd never met. Perhaps he was also an interesting person? But it was clear that Yukai's luck had run out. Forget it, let's rest for a while and get ready for work. There's still a little bit of writing left for the new book, and at my own pace, it'll probably take an hour or two. Next up is revisions, reorganizing the novel using more accessible vocabulary. Yes, it's an English book. This kind of subject matter is unprecedented in China. While China is a very tolerant nation, Yukai isn't sure it will catch on. He doesn't care if this book makes money, but he's afraid it'll flop. At 200,000 words, at the same pace as his previous two books, Yukai could finish it in a day or two, and he wouldn't even think about revisions. How tiring it would be. It's just about making money, so why bother? This novel is Yukai's exploration of the literary world. Although this venture directly takes him abroad, it's also a part of Yukai's exploration. He needs to create a good environment for this book. It would be best to publish it in the UK. Forget about Ireland, they would never publish a novel with a British protagonist. Every long-distance flight is a journey across time. Sometimes after flying for more than 10 hours, you will find that it was daytime when you set off and it is still daytime when you arrive. The time you left is the same time you landed. Jet lag is such a magical thing. Thank you all for listening to my complaints yesterday. Sorry. This is a negative emotion that needs to be changed. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 157 Times have changed. As soon as the plane landed and Yukai stepped out of the airport, he saw Case Hengming from Hanren Film and Television. He was standing among the people waiting to greet him, looking at him and nodding. He was clearly waiting for him. Case Hengming had previously asked Yukai for his flight number, and Yukai had casually given it to him. However, Yukai hadn't expected Case Hengming to personally pick him up at the Chengdu airport. Yukai, dragging his luggage forward, said, "Mr. K is truly a rare guest. He must have heard about the banquet I hosted for editor-in-chief Joe of Rip Culture in Chengdu last time, and this time he's here to take advantage of me. I'm not just here for a free meal, I also have good news for Teacher Yi." He spoke politely, and Yukai assumed he was here to ask for the copyright to Liangai Bang. Even though Yukai was abroad, he had heard about the popularity of Chinese Paladin in China. While not exactly a crowd-pleasing show, that's a far cry from reality in today's society, it was a hit for this year's adaptation, with consistently high ratings and numerous online discussions, making it a hot topic. While many still felt the film didn't capture the original's flavor, it was clear that the majority of viewers accepted the TV adaptation. Case Hengming is very adept at finding people. If Case Hengming had joined Yukai's fan group, he might have single-handedly run through the encounter plan 7 or 8 times. He's a master at finding love bars. This time was no different. Before most entertainment companies could find Yukai, he'd already gotten Yukai's flight number and traveled directly from Shanghai to Chengdu, just to meet Yukai. If those big companies had been like Case Hengming, even if the person they sent to meet Yukai was just an ordinary employee, Case Hengming wouldn't have gotten involved. I'll tell you the good news later. When did Mr. K get here? He just arrived a while ago. They walked and chatted until they reached the taxi stand. Yukai said, "It's a little awkward carrying all this stuff. How about Mr. K come to my house for a visit?" Case Hengming looked at the things Yukai was holding, but he didn't feel comfortable finding a place to have afternoon tea first. He nodded and said, "It would be my honor." The airport wasn't far from where Yukai lived, but getting there required a U-shaped detour, taking the ring road. It wasn't that there were no roads, but the traffic was incredibly congested. Vehicle controls in major cities are becoming increasingly stringent, but they still can't stop the rapid growth of private cars. Even so, the number of people commuting to work every day on the subway is as numerous as piles of soybeans. Over half an hour later, Yukai unlocked the door with his key. The living room light came on automatically after he pushed it open. It was the smart light Yukai had installed. They might be called smart, but most smart homes today are still quite naive. They're far less practical than manual switches. The air quality in Chengdu was much better than in Xiancheng. If you'd been away from home for 2 weeks in Xiancheng, your entire house would likely be covered in dust, but here it was still very clean. Yukai pushed his suitcase into the room and said, "Mr. please feel free to sit down." Case Hengming, surveying the room, replied, "Okay." Case Hengming had visited many homes, some extravagantly decorated, some minimalist, and of course, some, like Yukai's, with a rich scholarly atmosphere. A pair of wooden bookcases flanked the TV in the living room, filled with books, both unopened and new, perfectly packaged. A beautiful blue and white porcelain vase sat on top of the bookcases. Facing the TV was a gray sofa, adorned with a painting of a galloping horse. Upon approaching, he realized it was Yukai's work. From an ordinary perspective, Case Hengming simply thought the painting was beautiful. On the coffee table in front of the sofa sat a complete set of purple clay teapots. He, quite knowledgeable about tea, gazed down at the set. The teapot looked brand new and unused. At that moment, Yukai's voice rang out, "Mr. Teacher Yi." He stood up and called out enthusiastically, then sat down on the sofa with Yukai. "I've long wondered why Teacher Yi could write novels like The Legend of Sword and Fairy and Nirvana in Fire. Now that I've come to your house, I finally understand. Mr. You think very highly of me. I read books for fun, to pass the time. What would you like to drink? A soft drink or mineral water?" "No," Case Hengming said, gesturing to the tea set on the table. "I'm a bit of a tea lover. How about I make you a cup of tea?" Yukai smiled and said, "Okay, I haven't even used this tea set since I bought it." As he made the tea, Case Hengming explained the steps to Yukai, sharing the good news he'd mentioned earlier. Mango TV bought the rights for 2.5 billion yuan. Plus, with a premiere on their network, I estimate you'll receive over 100 million yuan in royalties by the end of the month. Yukai's smile froze. 100 million yuan? Is that how much money this kind of novel makes? For a moment, Yukai wanted to write another novel similar to Legend of Sword and Fairy. But then he thought, with hundreds of millions of yuan, what else could he not be satisfied with? Could he spend it all on traveling? This is not a one-time deal. If managed properly, the copyright of a well-known IP can actually be used as a treasure trove. There is no need to write articles for money. Writing about what you like is better than anything else. Case Hengming explained the knowledge of tea ceremony to you, and you have a deeper understanding of tea ceremony. Can I understand something better? The sudden sound of the system startled Yukai, who was thinking. He hadn't heard the system beep for a long time, and this time it was blown away by Case Hengming making a cup of tea. Case Hengming pushed a steaming cup of tea toward Yukai and asked, "Teacher Yi, what are your plans for Nirvana in Fire? How about selling it to us, too? The crew already has experience filming your series, so this is a good opportunity to film Nirvana in Fire as well." "Sure." Case Hengming breathed a sigh of relief at Yukai's response and continued, "Will it be the same profit sharing as last time? Or, profit sharing has its advantages. For example, this time it directly brought Yukai over 100 million yuan in revenue, but many factors factored into this outcome. Even with the same team and a different company, they wouldn't have achieved the same results. So, Yukai simply sold the copyright. Case Hengming paid 90 million yuan for the 6-year rights. It turns out the most profitable part of a novel isn't the royalties, but the copyright fees. Times have changed. After going downstairs to find a place to sign the contract with Case Hengming, Yukai returned home to an empty room. Then, he drew back the curtains and gazed down from upstairs at the garden below. Flowers bloomed, willows green, and kingfishers chirped. This was a 300-square-meter apartment in a prime residential complex within the second ring road of Chengdu. His bank account would soon have 90 million yuan, and soon another 100 million yuan would arrive. Thinking of this, Yukai suddenly felt it was too unrealistic. His heart was empty. Chapter 158: What it feels like to be rich. If you ask how life after becoming wealthy differs from before, well, not much. Yukai seemed to have forgotten about the 90 million yuan, continuing to busy himself with his own affairs. He had always been confident in his writing, so much so that for his first book as a newcomer, he boldly forgoes a publishing platform and hired a company to publish the physical copy himself. He also believed that his writing would be well received by the Chinese people. This was due to Yukai's own long-standing experience in China, and he understood the literary style and writing style favored by his countrymen. The Chinese people's pursuit of tradition allowed Yukai to fully develop his own writing style, imbued with a sense of antiquity. However, Yukai couldn't write English novels in the same style as the Chinese. His knowledge of Europe and the United States was limited to the original English books he'd purchased and the architecture and scenery he'd seen on his travels. But this was all based on observation, not on actually living in, experiencing, or embracing European and American culture. Therefore, his understanding of Western culture was relatively unfamiliar. Many authors use multiple languages, but why don't they translate their work themselves? It's their own work, so why should they rely on others for translation? This is precisely why. However, Yukai's strength lies in his literary style. Receiving numerous English awards had amassed a vast vocabulary, common, obscure, elegant. It was as if he'd spent a lifetime learning Chinese in China. Memorizing 300 Tang poems meant he could recite them even if he couldn't compose them. Yukai sorted out his book and sent the first section to a British publisher, leaving a note about his experiences and his achievements in China. Otherwise, a native Chinese writing an English novel? The publisher would have rejected it outright. Yukai had already revised this Harry Potter book twice. He'd done it once on the plane, and then, back home, while reading The Little Prince, he suddenly felt inspired and revised it again. This time, he didn't change any of the plot, simply making the vocabulary more Western. It'll be fine, Yukai thought to himself. In the distance, a TV show taping. An hour before dinner, the mushroom house was filled with a leisurely atmosphere. Zhang Zixun sat on the floor watching TV. The adults were preparing dinner, and Wang Lei, wearing an apron, was chopping vegetables. Ho ha ho ha. Zhang Zixun laughed heartily. On TV, Lin Yuru was having a martial arts competition to win a husband. Wang Lei heard Zhang Zixun's laughter and asked, "What are you laughing at?" "That's the Legend of Sword and Fairy, right? It seems to be very popular recently. Is it good?" "Very interesting." Wang Lei stared at the chopping board and said, "Actually, I still recommend you read the original novel. I've read both of Yukai's novels. In fact, I really liked the later one he wrote, Nirvana in Fire. It's quite amazing." He Jiang came in with a fish and said, "Are you talking about Yukai? You have such good ears that you can hear this." "Yes, we are talking about Yukai. Wasn't his novel recently adapted into a TV series and it's very popular?" I asked Zixun to read the original novel. "Indeed, the original novel is better." He Jiang placed the carp on the edge of Wang Lei's chopping board, washed his hands and came out and said, "At that time, I thought he would develop in the entertainment industry, but I didn't expect him to go abroad and travel around the world." Sigh. Zhang Zixun stood up and asked, "Teacher He, do you know Brother Kai? What is he like? Is he easy to talk to?" "Yi Kai, he's quite easy to talk to. How should I describe his personality? Rather gentle and polite." That was around the time when the Chinese Paladin book had just been released and was at its peak popularity. I wanted to invite him to Happy Camp. Zhang Zixun found it quite amusing and continued, "How was it? Did he go?" "No. A few days later, he messaged me and declined. He's back in Africa. I wondered how he could run so fast and if he could still sing well. Turns out, he didn't." Wang Lei chuckled, "Don't they make more money writing books than singing?" "That's true. Actually, there's another point. The money they make writing books is several levels higher than the money they make singing. Why would he want to wade into the murky waters of the entertainment industry? These days, the insults between celebrities are far darker than the wars between intellectuals." Zhang Zixun, still unaware of these developments, said regretfully, "That's quite a shame. Actually, I think Yukai would be a good fit for this show, but he probably won't be coming. I think he even posted on Weibo abroad a few days ago." He Jiang said. "Why?" He Jiang thought of Yukai and laughed. "Yukai gives me a very, well, he's like Caozhi or Suzhimo, really elegant, the kind who never gets wet. So I really want to see him working here, haha." Yukai had no idea anyone was discussing him. He had no idea anyone was comparing him to Xiao Zijian. He had no idea what his temperament was. How could anyone truly define their own? Everyone's temperament is different, a combination of innate and acquired, cultivated bit by bit. Summer in China arrives significantly earlier than in Ireland. In Ireland, you still have to wear windproof clothing, but back in China, winter clothes can be put in the back of the closet. Without even a hint of spring, he went from cold winter to warm summer. He wandered around the store and bought a ton of summer clothes. He left feeling refreshed. The joy of shopping was that simple, yet intense. Yukai used to have trouble making choices, but now that problem is gone. After putting the things at home, Yukai tidied up the house again. Although it looked clean, it had been unused for half a month, and some corners were still dusty. After finishing everything and eating the takeaway that had just been delivered, it was already 9 o'clock. While lying on the bed, Yukai asked Sunshine on WeChat, "What does it feel like to be rich?" "What kind of feeling? Going out to keep a mistress? A young model for a club? The money you earn can't really afford to go to a club many times." Yukai typed "I have 90 million" on the screen and then quickly deleted it. Asking Sunshine was the same as not asking. This guy was even worse at spending money than Yukai. Apart from the time when he used to treat people every day and go to bars every now and then when he was a playboy, he had never spent money recklessly, and his requirements for life were not high. The car he drove was actually not much different from Yukai's previous car. In the class group, Yukai's girlfriend from college asked, "What should I pack for my honeymoon in Paris now?" Yukai saw the message, long pressed enter, and replied, "My brain and a mask." Paris by day is beautiful. Although there are thieves and scammers running rampant in the tourist areas, it's mostly beautiful, and the attractions aren't as shady as those in China. But Paris at night is a bit hard to describe, the smell of urine everywhere. The streets of Paris are full of homeless people, and the banks of the Seine are full of drunks. This is a tourist city that everyone who hasn't been there praises, but those who have will never go back again. Go to bed, tomorrow is a new day, and maybe there will be news from the publishing house. Chapter 159 Program Invitation. 4 days later, Yukai received a reply from the British publisher. "Dear author, we have received your manuscript and have carefully read it. However, since your work does not align with our publishing house's style, we suggest you submit it to the British Children's Literature section." Yukai didn't read the subsequent replies in detail. It was rejected? Children's literature? I'm writing about children, but this isn't children's literature. Do you really think I'm writing a fairy tale? Yukai's introduction convinced a British publisher to take it seriously, and they quickly organized an editorial review of the Harry Potter novel. The editors loved the writing, but half of them were unsure about its future. The protagonist wasn't the typical high school student, but an elementary school student? How many best-selling books now feature children? So, even though the novel was mature, the publisher rejected it, citing the content as inappropriate. Their publishing house had plenty of masterpieces by renowned authors, so there was no need to publish such an uncertain work. Yukai had been prepared for this outcome, but it still hit him hard. Well, who told me to set the protagonist in elementary school? Wouldn't an adult be better? But that would be a different story, not Yukai's current Harry Potter work. Every work has its own life from the moment it's created. All Yukai could do now was to nurture this book, doing his best to create a favorable environment for it. The readers would have to decide the outcome. A novel isn't published to please the editors of a publishing house. Composing himself, Yukai sent it directly to 4 publishing houses, all mainstream fiction publishers, and didn't submit it to children's literature. If a children's literature publication accepted it, it would forever be defined as a children's work, which would be detrimental to an IP. After the message was successfully sent, Yukai turned to look out the window. It was raining today. Small raindrops clung to the clean glass, their patter casting the world outside a pale blue and bringing down the suddenly rising temperature. The sun, which had just emerged from the winter's chill, was smothered again by the rain. The weather has been truly strange lately. I'm sure many people will catch a cold. Yukai updated the game he hadn't played in a while and went to the kitchen to make coffee. Yukai was a novice coffee drinker, but he dreamed of making beautiful icing one day, so he bought a semi-automatic espresso machine. Forget about icing at first, making a cup of coffee that tasted good was what someone of Yukai's skill could achieve. About 15 minutes later, Yukai sat down at his computer, coffee cup in hand. Living in his own house was indeed comfortable. This was Yukai's study, a room he had converted from a bedroom. The window overlooked the street, and with a flick of his head, he could see the mirror-like highway. The mirror-like appearance was due to the rain that had fallen all night. Behind it stood a large bookcase, housing 7 or 8 times the books in front of the TV in the living room, most of them still unopened. They were all original works, in English, German, and even Japanese, a language Yukai didn't yet understand. The desk where his computer sat was enormous, taking up 2 walls. After receiving the transfer from Han Culture, Yukai hired a carpenter to custom make the furniture. The cabinets were purchased off the shelf. Including some carved wood ornaments, the total cost was 90,000 yuan. But Yukai loved the way his study looked now. Using the computer, reading, writing, and drawing, this study room perfectly meets Yukai's current needs. Yukai loves playing League of Legends. However, he's deeply disgusted by the trolls. He once knew a girl who often played duo queuing with him, but after getting irritated by the trolls, she stopped logging in online. Therefore, he has to block all his teammates when playing the game. A tragic fate, an obsession, a farewell to youth. The phone on the table rang, and the screen lit up, revealing Teacher He. Yukai stepped into the bushes and pressed B before answering the call. "Teacher he said. "I'm not Teacher He." The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, perhaps in his 30s or 40s. "I'm Chen Zhezhao, the director of Longing for Life. Teacher Yi, your phone is rejecting unknown calls, so I borrowed Teacher He's phone." "Oh, hello, Director Chen." "Well," Chen Zhezhao said, "I asked some friends and heard you're in China right now. So I was thinking about inviting you to the mushroom house soon." Me. Why did he suddenly call me? It was a surprise. The main thing was that he had already turned down Teacher He's invitation the previous time, and this was the second time. Both times were for highly rated variety shows, so what would Teacher He think if he refused again? The fact that he could lend Director Chen his phone for a call was telling. "Yes, don't worry, Teacher Yi. Our show doesn't have that many comedic segments, so just have some fun. Besides, we've had a lot of people from outside the entertainment industry on our show. Have you seen our show?" "Of course I have," Yukai said, thinking he hadn't been busy lately. "Thank you for the invitation. I'm available until April 10th. "That's great. We're starting recording in 2 days, not even April. I'll send you a text and ask you to add us on WeChat. Someone will discuss the specific time and your appearance fee with you, so I won't bother you anymore. I wish Teacher Yi's new work a big hit." After hanging up, Yukai wondered if the news of his new work had leaked. It was probably just a polite gesture. Anyway, I'm hoping this book will be a big hit abroad. Otherwise, Yukai wouldn't dare announce his new book on Weibo. Yukai thought, if this book flopped abroad, he'd never release a Chinese version. The game was already telling him not to idle for long periods of time, so Yukai moved his character into the bushes. Someone must be waiting to add him on WeChat. Yukai had originally thought he could live a peaceful, homebody existence for a few days. But he was used to being out and about. If Yukai stayed home all day playing games and reading, he'd probably go crazy in less than a week. Participating in the show was just a chance to get out and relax. After getting off the plane in Jiangsu and Zhejiang, a staff member from the show came to meet him at the airport. Wearing a baseball cap, Yukai approached a young man holding a card with the words Teacher Yi written on it and asked, "Hello, who are you picking up?" "Teacher Yi." He looked Yukai over, confirmed, and said enthusiastically, "You're here, Teacher Yi. I work with the Yearning production team. Teacher Yi, please follow me. We'll talk in the car." Chapter 160 March Day. Following him to the airport, there was indeed a van parked, adorned with promotional graphics and advertisements for the show. There were 2 other people in the car. One was a writer who had set up some of the plots and missions, temporarily acting as Yukai's assistant and helping him resolve any issues he might encounter during the show. The other, holding a camera, was clearly the photographer Yukai would be working with. "Here we are, turn on the camera," the female writer urged. The photographer lifted the camera and began recording. Just then, Yukai opened the car door, immediately catching sight of the long gun pointed at him and the woman sitting in the back seat with him. The woman was about 25, Yukai's age, wearing light makeup and short hair, appearing quite capable. As Yukai climbed into the car, she extended her hand and said, "Hello, Mr. Yi, please call me Jojo. If you have any questions these days, just come to me." Yukai took off his hat, shook her hand, and said, "Thank you very much." The mushroom house was about a 3-hour drive from the airport. Jojo explained some well-known entertainment industry rules to Yukai to prevent him from making mistakes on the show. After all, Yukai had only recently become a public figure and had little exposure to the entertainment industry, so Jojo had to explain everything in detail. "One more thing, Brother Yi," Jojo continued, "you can't just stay silent on the show, or you won't get many shots. You have to be active. Call teacher he and the others first. She pulled out her phone and dialed the mushroom house number. Zhang Zixuan, who was closest, shouted, "Another call. Brother, come answer it." "I'm busy." "You answer it." She stood up, ran to the room, picked up the phone, and said, "Hello." In the car, Jojo mouthed to Yukai, "Don't use your own voice." Yukai blinked and said to the person on the phone, "Hello, is this the mushroom house?" He spoke with a pinched voice, his voice childish, like a child going through puberty. He had never spoken like that before, so no one would recognize it as his voice. But there was no point in that. Teacher he might know it was him. It could fool the others in the mushroom house, but he wasn't famous, so no one would know it was his voice. Don't overthink it. It's an entertainment show, and having fun is the most important thing. "Yes, who are you?" Zhang Zixuan asked. Teacher he, who was just walking in, immediately laughed. Which guest isn't secretive when they come in? Who would tell you their name directly? You're asking a foolish question. He took the phone from Zhang Zixuan and said, "Hello, this is the mushroom house." "Ah, your teacher he. I want to order." "Yes, what do you want?" Yukai recalled the food he had eaten in China before. Considering the difficulty of obtaining ingredients here, Yukai said, "I'll have a serving of crayfish and a salad fish." "That's all? Any more?" This season has only been going on for a short time, but the previous guests were far from being so gentle, doing whatever they could to make them uncomfortable. This guy is not bad, he knows how to be content. Yukai studied several episodes. The more difficult the order, the more work he will have to do once he arrives. After hanging up the phone, Jiang went out and said, "Peng Peng, Dahui, go to the fields and catch some fish. And check for lobsters. I remember you bought nets last time. This season was when lobsters were plentiful, and there were plenty in the river. But they were hard to catch." "Got it, I remember buying nets. Come on, Peng Peng, let's go fishing." Wang Lei, basking in the sun in the yard, asked, "Who's it again?" "I don't know, I just know it's a man. He ordered lobsters and fish." "Huh?" Wang Lei shouted. "That's easy. Just have him go to the fields and catch his own fish later. Fish are easy to catch these days. Lobsters are hard to come by, it takes a whole day to find them with a net." "No problem. Go set up the nets now. We'll check tonight. If there's nothing, we'll collect them tomorrow morning." The rural roads here were very good. At worst, they were paved roads, and there was no vibration from driving on muddy or rotten roads. The latest pop songs played in the car, and Jojo patiently explained the situation. 3 hours passed quickly. Jojo was a very kind person, and it wasn't because Yukai was handsome that she was nice to him. She was genuinely trying to help him, not just doing it for the sake of work. Having just met her, Yukai wasn't entirely sure. But her attitude had left a lasting impression on him. Jiangsu and Zhejiang are famous for their scenery. After leaving the city, Yukai was greeted by a landscape unlike any other in the mountain villages of Guangxi, numerous ponds, fish ponds, and rice paddies. The harmony of mountains and water, with lotus leaves floating on the water, was breathtaking. Westlake is beautiful in March, and now is the most beautiful March. After a long moment, Jojo nudged Yukai's shoulder and said, "Brother Yi, we've arrived." Looking out the car window, it was a peaceful village. Or perhaps a small town? The roads were concrete, and there were numerous 2- and 3-story buildings. Downstairs, there were mahjong parlors, small shops, hardware stores, and the like. Seeing the TV station car approach again, many people craned their necks to watch. After driving for another minute or two, the atmosphere finally began to resemble a rural village. The place before should be called Ji, meaning the marketplace for nearby villages. Yukai had visited the countryside before and learned a lot of this kind of rural trivia. However, he wasn't sure if it was correct. Yukai only carried a small backpack. He would only stay here for a day or two at most, and carrying so many things would be cumbersome for him. He didn't like to mess around. However, he still brought his camera. He had encountered the awkward situation of seeing beautiful scenery but not having his camera with him many times. So, whenever possible, Yukai would always carry his camera. Jojo pointed to the road ahead and said to Yukai, "Teacher Yi, just follow this road straight ahead. There's an advertisement outside for the mushroom house. It's a very beautiful house." "Yes, thank you." From here, Yukai had to walk alone, accompanied only by his photographer. The photographer was a man under 30. Judging by his behavior in the car, he wasn't a quiet person, but he didn't talk much with Yukai. Perhaps it was because of his work that he couldn't talk freely. Yukai walked along the road, camera in hand. A few days ago, Yukai visited his grandfather's hometown, which was also a village. But it's nothing compared to here. There aren't any good roads there. After crossing the bridge, there's just muddy yellow dirt. And yet, there are tons of trucks carrying rocks, and not a single one is unloaded. By comparison, here, there are fewer cars, and the houses are noticeably nicer. It's time to move beyond just survival and pursue quality of life. Chapter 161 Mushroom House. Yukai walked along the road for 10 minutes. Surely they wouldn't park that far away? He'd figured it would only take a few minutes to get there after getting off. But he overestimated it. It was just like the Shaolin Temple scenic area. After buying a ticket and entering the area, he still had to walk a long way before he could see the temple gate. After walking a bit more, Yukai felt like he might have missed it. He asked the cameraman for help again. "Cameraman, I really haven't walked here? Don't lie to me, are you?" The cameraman, wearing a bucket hat, shook his head at Yukai, his camera shaking. This made Yukai a little worried. He hadn't noticed any of the previous guests asking this question. Did they all walk that far? Continuing his walk, Yukai finally spotted a beautiful house on the right side of the road. A long stone staircase ran down the road, giving it a very traditional feel. The gate was adorned with the Yearning for Life logo and an advertisement for Haugu rice cereal. He had to believe it was the right place. Finally there. Yukai breathed a sigh of relief, approaching the door and knocking gently. It wasn't because he was tired, but more because he was worried he'd lost his way and missed it. Inside the room, Hee-Jiong suddenly stopped what he was doing, listened carefully, and said, "Was there a knock on the door just now?" No, the door was not closed. Hee-Jiong heard the knock on the door again, put down the chopsticks he was using to taste the food, and said, "Someone really knocked on the door. I think it was the person I called just now. I'll go see who it is." Go ahead, Wang Lei said while cooking, feeling depressed. "What's going on these past 2 days? Why are there so many people ordering food?" When Yukai knocked on the door again, he finally realized that it was not closed. Just as he was about to push it open, "Teacher," he pulled it open from the inside. Come on, who is it?" Yukai shouted, "Teacher He." When Hee-Jiong saw who was coming, he suddenly realized, "Yukai. It's you. Come in first. The sound of the person ordering food just now was so different from yours that we were guessing for a long time." He gently pulled Yukai's arm and walked into the room, calling out, "Zisun. Zisun. Your idol is here." Within seconds, everyone in the room rushed out. Peng Peng and Dahua were still fishing in the pond across the street. There were only 4 people in the mushroom house right now: Hee-Jiong, Wang Lei, Zhang Zixun, and Kiwei. No, it wasn't just them who came out to welcome Yukai. Little H was also there. Little H was a Shiba Inu, a natural emoticon. These little guys frequently appeared in various groups every day and were incredibly popular. Woof woof. Hee-Jiong heard Little H barking at Yukai and immediately turned back to shout, "Little H, stop barking." He was met with a horrifying sight. Little H bolted straight toward Yukai, startling the others who had just emerged. They shouted, "Be careful." Zhang Zixun even screamed. "Don't worry," Yukai said. He knelt down and hugged the panicked Little H, rubbing his head with his right hand. "It's okay, he won't bite me. Look how scared he is." The noise was so loud that Little H almost turned back and ran away. Even with a bonus of intimacy, Yukai was not his master after all. If Little H decides that approaching Yukai is wrong and will upset its owner, then Yukai won't see this little guy again after this episode. That's kind of amazing, Kiwei marveled. Besides huskies, she'd never seen any other dog run into a stranger's arms. "What's the big deal?" Yukai said with a laugh. "Back in Australia, a wallaby even jumped on me and followed me everywhere I went." "Really?" Kiwei asked skeptically. She only half believed it. She hadn't watched Yukai's live streams. She didn't even know him personally. The name sounded familiar. It felt like she'd heard it somewhere. Zhang Zixun's eyes widened with laughter. He nodded and said, "It's true. Wow, that's amazing. Little animals really jump on you. So cool." It wasn't clear if he was referring to Yukai or his skill. "That's pretty impressive." Kiwei half believed it and nodded in agreement. She also wanted to have such a skill. That way, she could control the tabby cat at home, which hadn't let her hold it for so long. Brother, you even held her little lion. Zhang Zixuan boasted about Yikai's achievements. Huh? Kiwei was skeptical again. He Jiang introduced, this is Yikai, a travel photographer and writer. The Chinese Paladin show that's currently airing is Yikai's work. You know Chinese Paladin, right? Kiwei was actually the only one who didn't know Yikai, but she knew him after hearing the name. Judging by last year's ratings, Chinese Paladin could rank in the top 5 this year. With more development and a successful IP, it could potentially be a lifelong franchise. Hearing that Yikai had such a body of work, and was also a travel photographer, defined him. A wealthy man. Wang Lei went back to cooking, while teacher he helped. The remaining 3 sat in the small pavilion in the courtyard. From there, the view stretched far, unobstructed by tall buildings. Mountains and water, lush green trees, neatly arranged paddy fields. An old ox sat beneath a tree, nibbling on newly sprouted grass. The wind rustled the leaves, a sound so pleasant. How could it be called a life you long for? Yikai didn't know what to talk about with him, and since they had no other topics, he pulled Lin Huain's Falling in Love with a City from his backpack. The book was about Chinese architecture. After seeing the castle-like ancient buildings abroad, Yikai had become interested in Chinese architecture as well. Zhang Zixuan asked cautiously, Brother Yi, are you wearing makeup? Huh? Yikai looked up at her in confusion, touched his face, and asked, what's wrong? Is my face stained? She said you have good skin, Kiwei said. She tilted her head to stare into Yikai's eyes, studying him seriously to see if he had applied eyeliner or lashes, but everything looked natural, as if he was wearing no makeup. Yikai stepped back and said, oh, no makeup, no makeup. Don't look at me like that, you look like you're going to slice me up. Kiwei had just given Yikai the impression of a researcher observing a guinea pig. Zhang Zixuan was about to lament something when Kiwei interrupted her. She turned to Yikai and asked, do you use skincare products? No? Does facial cleanser count? That's good. I thought you were going into the entertainment industry. Last time I saw a male celebrity who had more to makeup than me. It made me vomit. She looked at the cameraman and said, this part was cut. It's useless. This girl seemed to be from Sichuan province. Yikai seemed to hear a familiar accent. Wang Lei came out with a pot, looked into the distance and said, why haven't those 2 guys come back yet? From here, only 2 black spots could be seen moving in the fish pond in the distance. Yikai could see them clearly, but he couldn't see what they were doing. He said, looks like they're still slacking off. Wang Lei saw several people sitting comfortably in the pavilion and made arrangements. You 3 go and take a look, and come back quickly if there are any fish. Yikai, you ordered this fish. Our principle here is to do the job that matches the dish you ordered. Zixuan, take them over. Yes, sir. Ha ha ha. Zhang Zixuan jumped up and said with a smile. Chapter 162 Fishing. Yikai had met some people in the entertainment industry. Last time at the TV station, there were actually quite a few celebrities, but the first impression many of them gave Yikai was, how can I describe it? Everything they said and did seemed like an act. They could be chatting with each other in a friendly and cheerful manner, but Yikai felt it wasn't real. It was like being held in a shackle. It wasn't that these celebrities were bad, but under the spotlight, many things were beyond their control. But the people here were different. Take Zhang Zixuan and Kiwei, for example. They struck Yikai as very real. Perhaps Zhang Zixuan's youth gave him a naivete. Kiwei, on the other hand, acted as if she didn't care what others thought of her. After crossing the road, they arrived in the fields. Despite the beautiful houses, the country had its fair share of mosquitoes. Kiwei, with her ankles exposed, was already bitten by 2 lumps before she even reached the fish pond. It seems your physique attracts mosquitoes, Yikai said. Stuff them to death. Kiwei touched her ankle and continued walking. Zhang Zixuan seemed like a die-hard fan. Yikai hadn't remembered many things from the live stream, but she still asked them as questions. For example, were kangaroos that small? Was that little kangaroo that had been following you all the way this tall? She gestured at her knees. Probably, maybe. Yikai was wondering how many people in China knew him. Even when he forgot to bring his hat and mask, he was rarely recognized. On the rare occasions he was recognized, only a few people asked for his autograph. Not counting those who saw celebrities and asked for his autograph, but Yikai had met Guan Zuixiu and Zhang Zixuan. One a well-known influencer on Bilibili, the other a rising star. Could it be that his charm had an added bonus when he was around famous people? That didn't make sense. Sister. Why are you here? Peng Peng called out from the pond, noticing the newcomers. Zhang Zixuan made a trumpet shape with his hands and shouted, "You're too slow. Teacher Wang and the others have been waiting for you." What? Peng Peng said, his voice too quiet to hear. While the two were talking, Yukai had already climbed onto the small platform with the fish pond. Seeing Kiwei struggling to pull up a weed, Yukai quickly grabbed her wrist. "Come on up. What if the weed breaks?" Kiwei, using the force of the pull, climbed up directly. Looking at Yukai with amazement, she said, "Sure. I didn't expect you to be so strong. What kind of image do you have of me?" From this hour-long conversation, it was clear that Kiwei saw me as a frail scholar, someone who relied on cosmetics for skincare and romance novels for money, right? It was a bit creepy. I hadn't thought of it as a romance novel when I wrote Chinese Paladin, but the way it was portrayed on TV, with all the handsome men and beautiful women in it, it was even more romantic than a romance novel. The novel's other battle lines and worldviews have been largely eliminated, with the script focusing solely on romance. It's no wonder people who haven't read the original novel interpret it this way. Yukai simply hopes his new book will be a hit. It primarily tells the story of the magical world, with love, hate, and vengeance being secondary plotlines. There's nothing remarkable about the romance. Just kidding, the protagonist is still a child. "Hey!" Kiwei shouted, "Did you catch any fish?" Teacher Wang's waiting to put them in the pot. Daohua, wearing waterproof clothing, stood up straight, wiped his sweat, and said, "Right away. The fish here are too small. If we don't catch more, we won't have enough to eat." Yukai looked at the fish basket he had placed on the shore. Sure enough, it was filled with tiny fish, about 2 fingers wide. These fish haven't grown yet. Isn't this a fish pond? Are there any big fish? Yes, but they're hard to catch. Peng Peng approached from the shore and said, "Teacher Yukai? I've heard a lot about you. Just call me Peng Peng. Can I call you Brother Yi?" Peng Peng approached, attempting to shake Yukai's hand, but seeing the mud on his hands, he retreated. Yukai grabbed his withdrawing hand and said, "Of course, you're flattering me. I'm not some famous person, so why would you say you've been admired for so long? Do you have any clothes? I'll go catch them with you." With the way they were catching, they'd probably only catch a few small fish. They could have a whole pond of silver carp, and you'd cleared out all the fry in such a short time. It feels a bit wasteful, and these are too small. Are they supposed to be eaten like yellow croaker? Big fish are fine. Really? That's great. There's clothes in the house over there. Kai? Brother Yi, go change first. Well, this guy probably watched his live streams, and his fans were constantly calling him Brother Kai online. Yukai had corrected him several times, but in the end, they just kept calling him Brother Kai online. Whenever they saw him, they'd just call him Brother Yi instead. He didn't know if Zhang Zixuan had gotten him into this, but he heard they had a good relationship. Maybe that was a possibility. Yukai looked where he was pointing. There was a small wooden house over there, only about 10 square meters. A thigh-thick log was hammered into the soil and secured with wire. Atop it was what looked like an awning or wooden planks, covered with thatch. It was a bit dangerous to live in, but perfectly adequate for storage. The small hut was dark. Only after Yukai turned on a flashlight did he see the clothes Peng Peng had mentioned. As he removed them, he spotted a treasure in the corner. "Why aren't you using them? Are you two catching fish with your hands?" Yukai looked at the fishing net and sighed at the cameraman behind him. "You have a net, you silly boys." The fish pond had obviously been rented by the production crew, along with a storage shed. If fish farmers don't use nets to catch fish, do they have to use their hands to sell them? Yukai, not wearing the clothes, dragged the net to the edge of the pond. Kiwei and Zhang Zixuan sat on a rock, chatting. Peng Peng rested on the shore. Only Daohua remained in the water, struggling to catch a fry. It was estimated that the fish had only been in the water for 2 or 3 months. Seeing Yukai approaching with a net, Peng Peng asked, "Brother Yi, do you know how to use a net?" "So you guys don't." Yukai wasn't very good at farm work, but fishing was once one of his hobbies. The fish pond at the farmhouse was a frequent gathering place for Yukai and Sun Shuang, and he'd seen the owner use the net many times. Daohua, stop fishing and come up first. We'll use the net." Seeing that Yukai knew how to use a net, Dahu quickly climbed ashore. Great. We just spent ages using this net and didn't catch anything. The pond wasn't big. After setting the net in the water, Yukai instructed, go ahead and pull it all the way to the other side. Whether there's fish or not, let's go back and eat. By the time they emerged, the dishes were mostly ready. No fish, no problem, there was still time in the afternoon. Recently, 2 new helmsmen were added, tofu and pork belly rice and pig shouting at elephant. Thank you for your donations. I'll keep working hard to update. There's also a hall master, the dash is the ID. The success of this book is inseparable from your support. Thank you. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163 Chapter 162 What language are you speaking? Peng Peng and Dahu each stood on one side, holding the net in their hands as they walked towards the other side. In fact, the net was still quite heavy after being put into the water, especially when some fish were caught and struggled hard, making the net even heavier. Come on. Kiwei shouted. Dahu was fine, but Peng Peng was gradually finding it difficult to pull the net. Yukai put his left hand in his pocket, shielding his right hand from the sun, and leisurely called out, slow down, Dahu. He was wearing a white polo shirt and casual sweatpants, obviously not equipment for working. Zhang Zixun was amused by this and kept laughing. Yukai also found this scene interesting and said with a smile, I really worry about them. It seemed that Yukai was just talking and not doing any work, but in fact, if he had just changed into his waders, he might have gone down to help. He brought a change of clothes with him when he came. In the distance, at the mushroom house, Jiang had been waiting in the yard for a long time. Why haven't you come back yet? Wang Lei finished cooking and lay on a bamboo chair in the sun. He said, I'll be back sooner or later. Did I go call them? Just sit still for a while. You're making me dizzy. Jiang took out his phone and said, no, I have to make a phone call and ask what those people are doing over there. It's not that troublesome. Wang Lei stood up and walked to the edge of the yard, shouting, Dahu. Peng Peng. It's time for dinner. He turned to Jiang and said, come on, let's shout together. Jiang laughed heartily. Is the life we yearn for to communicate basically by shouting? That's too miserable. The two stood at the edge of the yard and shouted, it's time for dinner. On the hillside, everyone was watching the school of fish caught in the net. Wow, that's a lot. The holes in the net were just the right size, allowing the growing juveniles to escape. The remaining ones were all over a pound. If they hadn't been forced out by the net, no one would have thought there were so many fish in the thigh-deep pond. Yukai released all the small fish Peng Peng had caught earlier. Using his net, he found 3 fish weighing 2 or 3 pounds from the dense school and placed them in his net. He said, alright, Peng Peng, let go, and Dahu pulled the net back in. Time for dinner. Time for dinner. It sounded like Teacher He's voice. Yukai walked to the edge of the pond and looked toward the mushroom house. Sure enough, he saw the 2 teachers standing inside the pavilion, calling out for help. Yukai shouted, got it. We'll be right back. Kiwei also walked over to Yukai and joined him in shouting, we're back. She laughed and said, that reminds me of a joke about 2 people living on top of 2 mountains. Dahu returned from putting his things away. As he passed by Yukai, he said, let me get it, I'll get it. No, it's not heavy. Let me do it, Dahu said enthusiastically, taking the net. My name is Liu Xianhua, just call me Dahu. My name is Yukai. Yukai finally felt like a guest at Dahu's place. Peng Peng quickly changed his clothes and came back. He and Dahu were running in the front, with Kiwei in the middle, telling Zhang Zixun a story, and Yukai walking slowly at the end. It felt like traveling with friends. Dahu glanced at Yukai and asked Peng Peng beside him, how old is Yukai? Why are you asking this? Brother Kai is the same age as me, 24 this year. Well, it would be fine if you didn't ask, but now you're asking makes me feel so young. 24 years old. Dahu was surprised. He thought Yukai was at least 27 or 28, how could he be only 24? It's hard to tell the age of people in the entertainment industry from their appearance. For example, it's hard to tell that Peng Peng is 24 this year, and it's hard to tell that he will be 30 next year. Before, he saw Yukai giving orders so naturally and thought he was about the same age as him. Wang Lei opened the door, looked at the fish, and said, "Wow, such a big fish. We can have a good meal tonight. How about a fish feast? It's a waste to use it for just one dish. Are you opening the door for us, or for the fish?" Kiwei asked. He Jiang said from the courtyard, "Of course, for the fish. It took 2 hours to catch one. A fish that took so long to catch needs some ceremony. Come on, little H, let's go greet Mr. Fish." Yukai walked over and, upon hearing this, replied, "So, we're not catching fish this time, we're inviting them." "Of course. It doesn't matter if you guys come back or not. The fish have to come back. We still have to cook tonight." Wang Lei laughed heartily, took the fish basket from Dahua, and carried it to the kitchen. The dishes were laid out on the pavilion, a fiery red that made Yi's mouth water. The table was filled with Sichuan cuisine, with only 2 exceptions, because not everyone likes chili peppers. After everyone was seated, Yukai asked, "Did you know I was coming? This dish is just to my taste." Teacher He, washing some fruit, said, "You're so lucky. These are the dishes Kiwei ordered. By the way, you're from Chengdu, and so is Kiwei. You're from the same hometown." Kiwei looked at Yukai sharply and asked in Chengdu dialect, "You're from Chengdu too?" "Where in Chengdu?" "Next to the Wuhao Temple." "Really? My home is over there, too." The 2 fellow villagers started speaking in dialect. Wang Lei and He Jiang could understand a little, but the other 3 were completely confused. "What language are you speaking? Can you please speak Chinese? Let's eat." Mushroom House had a tradition of drinking, but that was in the evening, so they could rest afterward. They didn't usually drink at noon. Yukai already had a vague feeling that work would have to start in the afternoon. It didn't matter, it was a new experience, wasn't it? It had been raining for the past few days, and today it finally cleared up, and Wang Lei was in a very good mood. Sitting in a very heroic posture, Wang Lei put his hands on his legs and said after taking a sip of the soy milk given by the advertiser, "The weather is nice today, Yukai. You came at the right time, there is work piled up for several days waiting for you." He Jiang almost couldn't help laughing, and quickly spit the soup in his mouth to the ground, and said, "It rained here a few days ago, and there are indeed many things that were not done." Yukai and Brother Ki also caught up in time. "I've been prepared for a long time," Yukai said confidently. "I have never done these things before. This time I came here with expectations. I just hope that things won't be too simple." Several people joked at the dinner table, and they didn't know how much of it would be edited into the show. As they were chatting, Yukai suddenly realized something and said, "So it was you who spoke the Sichuan dialect in number 18 the Bund? This song is a memory of mine from elementary school. It's amazing that I still have it on my phone." Kiwei covered her face with her hands and said, "That's enough flattery, fellow villager. I can't say any more. You 2 are not in Chengdu now, right?" He Jiang said, "Brother Ki has a house in Shanghai, and Yukai travels all over the world. Do you have a settled place now? Or do you always go back to Chengdu?" "Of course I'm going back to Chengdu. I just bought a new house in Chengdu some time ago. I have to live there for at least a year, right?" "You bought a house yourself? I'm so envious." Peng Peng interrupted during the meal. Burp. Chapter 164 Chapter 163 Bat. After dinner, Yukai saw Dahua and the others clearing the table and went over to help. Compared to the other seniors, Yukai, not yet 24, was just a junior. Despite Yukai calling Dahua, he was actually several years older, though it didn't look obvious. No, Brother Yi, go rest. We'll do it. Why are you joining in the fun? Just call them whatever you want. They should all be younger than me, right? How old is Peng Peng this year?" "He's 24, your year." "24? I thought he was 18. Too young, not much different from Zixuan." Peng Peng, washing dishes in the distance, heard what they were saying and quickly said, "Come on, do I look that young? Zixuan is only 16. 17. Zhang Zixuan shouted in self-defense. In the minds of many people, even Yukai, the age of 16 to 17 is a watershed. While not old enough to get a formal ID, one is already responsible for their own life. It's the turning point from a child to an adult. Most of a person's understanding of the world is actually developed during this time. After a short break, Wang Lei announced the tasks for everyone. Of course, It wasn't a set task card with a fixed routine. The tasks Wongley outlined were quite flexible. Dahua, take Yukai and the others to find some bamboo shoots. It rained a few days ago, so there must be plenty today. Peng Peng and Zisun should come too. Kiwei, you and Teacher He go to the strawberry garden and pick some strawberries. It made sense. Yukai's group was mostly made up of able-bodied adults, so it was only natural to assign them some strenuous tasks. Yukai was quite interested in finding bamboo shoots. As long as there was something new, Yukai wouldn't get bored. Ignore Zhang Zisun, Wongley had arranged for her to go out with the brothers. But Peng Peng was a real jerk when it came to cheating on his sister. Anyway, this trip should be fun. They followed them, carrying a bamboo backpack and 3 hoes, and began to climb the mountain. The place to dig for bamboo shoots was behind the house. After going out and around to the back of the mushroom house, you can see a path leading up the mountain. Zhang Zixun noticed that they only had 3 hoes and said, "Huh? Don't I have to dig?" Peng Peng immediately said, "I got it for you. I'm going to see if they caught any lobsters. If they did, we can eat crayfish tonight. Do you want some? Yes or no? If I want to eat, I have to work. If I don't want to eat, will there be no crayfish to eat tonight? What does he want to do? Does he really want me to dig bamboo? He's just teasing you, don't worry," Yukai said, then added, "Zixun, do you believe I can dig enough bamboo shoots for you all for 3 days? Has brother Yi ever dug bamboo shoots before? No, this is my first time. I rarely go to the countryside, except for fishing with friends. Even if I did, I wouldn't have time for farm work. Time is precious, and after fishing, I have to go back to work. Then I don't believe it. It's impossible, right? Last time, they dug for a long time before they found a few, and there were several people there. Then let's make a bet." Zhang Zixun smiled confidently. Okay, what's the bet? Tell me," Yukai said. Zhang Zixun was rather reserved in the mushroom house. He didn't know why, and Yukai wasn't familiar with her. But when she was hanging out with the older brothers, she was much more outgoing. Afraid of Teacher He? Probably not. Teacher He is very gentle. It's just that she's afraid of Teacher Wang. She's actually a very well-behaved little girl. Yukai really likes girls who are a little reserved and well-behaved like this. This kind of liking doesn't mean Yukai likes the kind of love that Saoirse has, but rather that he has no resistance to cute things. After seeing that she doesn't talk much, Yukai always wants to chat with her more. Betting is also a kind of chatting. Whether he wins or loses the bet, it doesn't really matter. He doesn't think there will be any excessive conditions. If you lose, then be my brother. Zhang Zixun said this a little shyly, and lifted his fluffy short hair. Peng Peng suddenly turned around and widened his eyes. What about me? He thought. He and Zhang Zixun met through a movie, and he played Zhang Zixun's brother in that movie. But Zhang Zixun never really admitted it in private. Although he called her sister and Zhang Zixun agreed, it had never been so formal. It's over, his sister is going to run away. What if I win? Have you thought about this problem? Ha, impossible. Brother Yi, you haven't dug it before, so you don't know how difficult it is. They dug for a long time. Zhang Zixun was extremely confident. How much would it take for several people to dig for 3 days? How many people dream of being their idol's younger sister? You always have to have some dreams, Yukai said. Zhang Zixun nodded, indicating that Yukai had a point. How about if you win, I'll be your younger sister. Isn't that a bit of a jerk? Then I'll give you a gift, she said. Haha, it's a deal then. Isn't this a bet just like bullying? Win or lose, it doesn't cost him anything. And even if she didn't say so, Yukai still treated her like a younger sister. We're here, Tahoe said. Ahead was a bamboo forest, surrounded by many small bamboos. Bamboo grows very quickly, and only the newly emerged shoots are edible. In a few days, they will become real bamboo. If we cut them down now, we'll just feed them to the giant pandas. It had been raining for the past few days, but today was the first sunny day. Many bamboo shoots were emerging from the soil. Peng Peng and Dahu had both been there before, and the moment they saw the shoots, they immediately set to work. Yukai watched from the side for a moment, figuring out how to dig before walking away. Zhang Zixun, following Yukai's lead due to a bet they'd made, felt a pang of jealousy. With so many bamboo shoots, he wondered if he was going to overturn the harvest. The hole was sturdy. The tools in the mushroom house had been inspected numerous times, so if used properly, they wouldn't cause any problems. With a gentle swing, the hoe unearthed a large pile of dirt. Gradually, Yukai found a feel for it, each swing allowing him to find an angle that saved him more effort. Gradually, his speed caught up with Daho and the others. This was Yukai's first time using this tool, and he was already quite skilled. If the system could talk, it would probably be cursing by now. Was this the only thing you were gifted for? Yukai smiled at the thought, and the cameraman standing opposite him faithfully recorded it. The cameraman felt a little jealous, wondering how many girls his sudden smile would captivate. 20 minutes later, Yukai had already dug more bamboo shoots than Daho and Peng Peng combined. They chat for a few minutes, otherwise they just sit there digging for hours without getting on camera. Audiences wouldn't watch shows like this. Those who really wanted to see bamboo shoot digging should go to the Agricultural Economics channel. But Yukai kept working hard, mainly because he couldn't find any topics to start a conversation. He felt childish trying to dance or act funny in front of the camera. Perhaps it was just idol culture? Zhang Zixuan, perhaps thinking similarly, sat on a rock nearby, checking his phone and counting Yukai's bamboo shoots. Only when the right topic came up did either of them engage in conversation. Yukai barely broke a sweat, nor did he feel tired. In fact, his physique now surpassed that of many professional athletes. Last time in the boxing gym, a casual punch from Yukai could pack a punch of 400 kilograms of force, and a serious punch could easily pack around 600 or 700 kilograms. Even a world champion boxer could only pack 800 kilograms of force. In other words, Yukai was now very close to the limits of human endurance. However, the further the talent points go, the less benefit Yukai receives. After all, the algorithm is there. It's effective when talent is low, but as talent increases, it might take dozens of points to catch up to the meager effect Yukai had previously achieved. Boxing, learned so far, has been useless, Yukai only using it for morning exercise. How many are there? Yukai asked. The young woman glanced at the bamboo shoots in her backpack and counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Yukai accurately tossed another in and said, 8. It was unclear what species the bamboo shoots were, but each one was enormous. The root was about the size of a fist, and each one was about 3 centimeters long, sometimes taller, sometimes slightly shorter. Zhang Zixuan watched Yukai's digging speed increase, and she lost interest in playing with her phone. She thought to herself, could it be that Brother Yi doesn't want to acknowledge me? Ugh, so annoying. She scrolled through her WeChat group chat. The 6 people repeated the message like an army, the top one referring to the bet she had made with Yukai. She had confidently declared Yukai impossible to win, citing several scenarios as examples. But now she just wanted to delete, long press. But the pop-up options didn't even have an undo button. 2 minutes had already passed, and there was no way to undo. So embarrassing. 9. Yes, Zhang Zixuan replied perfunctorily. Yukai knew what she was thinking. A child barely over 16, all her emotions were written on her face. It was a shame. After 10 years in the entertainment industry, she hadn't learned how to act in real life like those people. For child stars like Zhang Zixuan, besides filming, studying was more important. This meant they had no time to hang out with other people during filming. Any free time they had was spent reading scripts and memorizing lines. This made them appear more innocent than their peers, a fact that would change quickly after college. I hope Zhang Zixuan won't be like that. Society is a melting pot. No matter how white you are, once you enter it, you'll be instantly dyed a riot of color. To survive in a circle, you have to accept its rules. There's a saying that goes, you can't change the world, so you can only change yourself. And if society wants to develop, it will only be gray. Chapter 165 $1. Wow. Brother Yi. Peng Peng came over and saw the huge basket of bamboo shoots that Yukai had dug. The pointed tips of the shoots had already overflowed the basket. The amount was 1 or 2 times more than that of him and Daho combined. How did you do that, Brother Yi? That's amazing. Yukai stood up straight, stretched his waist, and said, just dig slowly. Once you get used to it, your speed will increase. It's just like writing calligraphy. If you practice diligently and write more, your writing will definitely get better. No one will get worse the more you practice. Yukai simply shortened the practice process. Daho came over, wiping his sweat. Seeing how much Yukai had dug, he was stunned. After a long while, he said, Then can we call it a day and go home? Yikai, how come you are so fast? After the previous chat, Daho no longer followed them in calling brother Yi, but it still sounded strange to Yikai. What does fast mean? Daho put the hoe on his back, took out his phone, checked the time, and said, Yikai has dug so much, we don't need to dig any more, right? It's only been over an hour. They definitely haven't come back yet. What are we going to do? To see the lobsters. Peng Peng said. He really wanted to eat lobsters, to see if he could get a life today. Zhang Zixuan must be really sad, sitting alone in a bamboo forest in the distance, curled up playing with his phone. She was so happy that she thought Yikai was just trying to cheer her up, but it turned out that he was serious. The bet that was almost certain to win was lost. Digging for an hour or two, aren't you tired? I don't care about my face, do I? Thinking of this, she suddenly felt so uncomfortable that she wanted to cry. At this moment, the sunlight was blocked. She looked up and saw Yikai standing in front of her, his tall body blocking the sunlight. When he squatted down with a smile and looked at her at eye level, the light appeared. What's wrong, sister? Who bullied you? Well, I lost. You didn't lose, I won too, Yikai said. Ah. Why? Yikai stood up and stretched out his hand to her. Have you ever heard of a saying? Only children make choices, adults want everything. You didn't lose, because you are already my sister. I won, so you still have to give me a gift. Huh? Zhang Zixuan was shocked by the sudden news. She thought Yikai didn't like her, so she worked so hard to win. So that's how it is. You should have told me earlier. Zhang Zixuan was so happy that she almost couldn't hold back the sad expression on her face, and the corners of her mouth twitched slightly. Hold on, there's a camera. He looked as if he had lost money just now, but he laughed again not long after. That expression must have been very ugly, right? Fortunately, he was an actor and could control his expression very well. But Yikai saw it. Is your acting real? Reaching out and scratching Zhang Zixuan's nose, Yikai pulled her up from the ground, saying, let's go, let's see if there are any lobsters. Okay, brother. Silly. He. If everything goes smoothly, without any setbacks, then the ultimate joy and reward will be far less valuable than the success achieved after a setback. A disappointment, but ultimately achieving the goal, is the most precious outcome. Yikai applied the principles of fiction writing to real life, and the same applies. This is also the real reason why many people give their fiancés the cold shoulder for a while when proposing. They hadn't walked far when Yikai let go. Peng Peng and the others saw Yikai return, stood up, and said, I don't know who was there just now. I was so sad I almost cried, and now you're smiling so happily? How strange. You shut up. Daho and Peng Peng both laughed. They knew about the bet between Yikai and Zhang Zixuan, and they knew that Yikai couldn't be indifferent to Zhang Zixuan's feelings. They weren't just 10-year-olds, this was a show. So there was bound to be a twist at the end. Of this group, including the cameraman, only Zhang Zixuan thought Yikai was playing for his own victory. The three people's baskets were piled together. Yikai's was overflowing with bamboo shoots, while Daho and Peng Peng only had a small layer of 5 or 6. These bamboo shoots were large, so generally only 3 were needed for stir-frying with meat. Yikai cut so many not just to eat here, but also to send some back home so his parents could also taste the bamboo shoots he had dug in the countryside. Otherwise, he wouldn't have worked so hard. This was his first time, so precious. You've dug too much, haven't you? Let us carry some for you. Peng Peng distributed the bamboo shoots from Yikai's basket between their 2 baskets. He looked carefully and saw that Yikai's had less than Daho's. So he took another one and put it back. Yikai asked tentatively, Virgo. No, I'm a Libra. Peng Peng realized why Yikai had asked that and anxiously took the bamboo shoots he had put back into Yikai's basket and put them back into Daho's. I don't have OCD. No, I don't tell me that. Daho laughed, put the basket on his back, and said, then let's go back and put these bamboo shoots away, then go to the river to see the lobsters. Let's go. Going up the mountain is easy, but going down is hard. It's not that the path becomes difficult, but that the body's center of gravity also shifts downward during the descent, making it easy to get into danger. So, they walked slowly, taking every step firmly. Wang Lei was alone when they returned to the mushroom house. He was chopping wood with sunglasses on. Seeing the group return so quickly, he asked, back so soon? Did you dig anything? Come over here and let me see. Yes, we dug a lot. Peng Peng hurried over to put down his basket. As soon as Wang Lei saw the bamboo shoots in the basket, he knew what was going on. Not only would it be enough for today, but there would probably be enough for another meal tomorrow. He immediately smiled and said, "Okay, I said you'll get good at digging bamboo shoots after digging a few times." Peng Peng was afraid that he would have to dig bamboo shoots every day in the future, so he quickly said, "Most of them were dug by Brother Yi alone. They have more over there, and there are so many." Yukai. He remembered what Yi Jiang had said before, and asked Yukai, "Have you dug bamboo shoots before?" "No, this is my first time." "Sure, young man. Haha, it's really nice to have you as a guest of the mushroom house. The dishes you ordered are easy to prepare, and you brought back so many bamboo shoots at once." He held a bamboo shoot and asked the director, "Well, Director Chen, can this bamboo shoot be sold for money?" The director thought for a while, considering that the program crew could also add a meal later, and said, "Sure, $1 each." Wang Lei thought he had heard wrong, and asked, $1? A pound of bamboo shoots sells for $5 or $6 outside. You give me $1 and want to get rid of me? Well, $1 apiece, 10 for a bottle of beer. Wang Lei shakily took off his flip-flops, slipper in hand, and walked towards the production team barefoot. He asked, "These are fresh bamboo shoots that the guys dug up themselves. $1 apiece." Two. Wang Lei threw his shoes to the ground with a clattering sound. Chen Zhao's heart trembled, but Wang Lei had already put his foot into the flip-flop. $2 is about right. Chapter 166. I heard you can't drink much? Actually, never mind. Yukai thought about taking them to a distant market to sell, but then thought there might be some rules within the production team, so he didn't raise his idea. After all this time, no one from the production team had come to Yukai to discuss the show's rules. After putting the bamboo shoots down, the four of them left the mushroom house and headed towards the river. Passing the strawberry garden on the way, they ran into He Jiang and Qi Wei, who were returning. They had picked a large basin of strawberries and were heading back. "Did you go digging for bamboo shoots? Where are you going?" He Jiang asked. "We've got a huge pile. Let's go to the river and see if we can catch any crayfish." He Jiang waved his hand and said, "No, I checked, and they're basically empty. It's been hours. How about, go to the market and buy some?" According to the rules, that was definitely not allowed. Shortly after he raised his opinion, the director sent a message, "Spending your own money on things is absolutely not allowed. All the rules of the mushroom house are tolerated, but since you've come here to enjoy the idyllic life, you can't spend your own money on material things." They exchanged glances. "Forget it, let's come back tomorrow. You can't rush catching lobsters with a net. It's only been 3 or 4 hours, so there certainly aren't many caught. But few of these people actually know how to do it, and they don't know when to set up the nets." The group strolled along the road, bantering and making merry. Yukai discovered that being in the entertainment industry requires a high level of emotional intelligence. Chatting with them, you never have to worry about whether your next sentence will fall flat. They usually pick up your topic easily. Teacher He, in particular, not only connects the conversation but also cracks a little joke. Now, everyone in the mushroom house except Wang Lei was there. Wang Lei, having finished his wood chopping duties, sat alone in the house. "It's a bit boring." Wang Lei stood up again, piled all the bamboo shoots they brought back together, and shelled them one by one. The door suddenly opened, and Teacher He returned with a group of people. "Wow, so many bamboo shoots. They can sell them for 2 yuan each. The amount of bamboo shoots these guys dug in 2 hours is about the same as the honey we get in a whole day." At this point, Wang Lei suddenly looked at Yukai. "I've got a way to make money," Wang Lei said. Teacher He also smiled thoughtfully, looking at Yukai. "I've got a way to make money too." "What way to make money?" Dadho scratched his head, confused as to what they were talking about. His Chinese was passable, but he could only understand the literal meaning. But as long as Yukai understood, it was fine. This matter had nothing to do with Dadho and the others. Were they going to make him work like a slave? "Yukai," Wang Lei said amiably. "Why don't you come as a guest? Stay a few more days, or even 2 days. If that doesn't work out, we'll have to tie you up and make you help us dig shoots." "I'm a guest," Yukai said in horror. Everyone laughed. Despite this, the group went back up the mountain to dig up more shoots. Director Chen had said that the bamboo shoots could only be exchanged for money today. Otherwise, they could wait until they were proficient in the job. The economic balance the production team had worked so hard to establish was about to be shattered. By dinner time, the table was already laden with delicious food and wine, and in the kitchen, Wang Lei was still stir-frying the last dish. Yakai threw some firewood into the stove, noting that larger pieces of wood tended to burn easily. "Lower the flame," Wang Lei said. He was moving faster and faster, adding food, salt, and seasonings to the wok in one go. He couldn't be any quicker. Yakai's fire was too strong. If you waited any longer, the food would burn. Teacher He, waiting for the last dish to come out of the wok, burst into laughter at the sight. Even after the dish was finished, the flames were still blazing brightly. Wang Lei looked down and said, "Your family is broke. Why did you throw away all the firewood?" "That way it burns brighter, Teacher," he said. "That makes sense." Wang Lei poured more water into the pot, and the others left the kitchen and headed out into the courtyard. It was getting dark. The chirping of various unknown insects rose and fell, a chaotic cacophony of sounds, their origins unfathomable. But the mushroom house was brightly lit, its surroundings illuminated by lights, making every corner crystal clear. In the courtyard stood a pavilion, illuminated by cool white LEDs. This made staying inside feel almost as bright as turning on the lights at night at home. "The food is here." Teacher He brought out the last course. "What a feast!" Kiwei exclaimed. Wang Lei pointed at the dishes on the table and said, "This is the best meal we've had since the show started, right? Fish and meat, even lobster cooked in beer, fresh bamboo shoots." He Jiang opened his beer and poured it into everyone's glasses. "We have Yakai to thank for this, for leading our mushroom house to prosperity." The bamboo shoots were originally 2 yuan a stick, but after adjusting for the market price, the production team added an extra yuan, bringing the price to 3 yuan each. Otherwise, the price difference would be too great, and they planned to sell them themselves. The bamboo shoots weren't grown by the production team, they could choose how to prepare them themselves. In the end, they dug up dozens of lobsters and exchanged them for over 200 yuan. They used the money to buy lobster, seasoning, beer, spare ribs. The food on the table now almost cost the 200 yuan. Seeing Teacher He pick up his glass, everyone raised their glasses. "I was going to drink it all, but I heard Yakai can't hold his liquor very well, so let's just be casual." Yakai said with a smile, "Has this even reached you? Everyone who follows you knows, right, Zixuan?" Zhang Zixuan squinted and nodded vigorously. The little girl's eyes disappeared when she smiled. The glass on her table was different from everyone else's. Everyone else had beer, but hers contained soy milk. Soy milk is free here because it's provided by a sponsor. Drink as much as you want, it's free. Talking about Yakai couldn't help but discuss his current job. After all, being a travel blogger is a rare profession in China. The audience must be curious about Yakai's profession as well. Teacher He took a sip of beer and asked, "Yakai, you've traveled to so many countries. Is there anything that moved you the most?" "Touching." Yakai thought for a moment and said, "Actually, when you leave your familiar surroundings, the things you see will always move you. I once ran into some trouble in Africa, and a Chinese person stepped forward to help me solve the problem. I was deeply moved at that moment." Yakai added, "By the way, she's a woman, very thin, but I felt her sudden presence was quite impressive. I've updated a total of 150,000 words this month. I wonder if I can add 200,000 next month?" So I picked up my calculator and calculated that I'd need 6,666 words per day. It's so difficult. But I want to try. I'm begging for votes. Today is the last day of the month. I'll also be begging for votes tomorrow, the 1st. I'm going to update seriously. Chapter 167. The breeze is just right, and you are just right too. You know what? Sometimes girls have a much stronger sense of justice than boys. Wang Lei said seriously. Noticing everyone staring at him, he quickly explained, "Why are you looking at me?" "It's true." He Jiang smiled and said, Okay. We know your wife watches the show." Kiwei said, "We Chinese people should help each other when we were abroad. Last time, I got lost and couldn't find my way back after searching for a long time. In the end, it was a Chinese woman who helped me." "What about Yakai?" Teacher He asked. "Do you encounter such a problem abroad? For example, if you get lost somewhere, how do you solve it?" "Not really. I usually remember any route I've walked once, So I just go back the same way. If I really can't find the way, I can check a map on my phone or ask someone. Kiwei felt her pride crushed. Are you taking advantage of my poor English? Wang Lei's cooking skills are better than Yikai's, no wonder he's nicknamed Wang Ziachu. Although the food isn't as good as in restaurants, it's just average home cooking. But when it comes to the right cooking temperature and the right amount of saltiness, Wang Lei has grasped the essence. Potatoes and pork ribs, a perfectly normal home-cooked dish. Home-cooked dishes are essentially the most widespread and family-friendly recipes across the country. Yet, each family can create something unique. Yukai had his mother's and his father's, and he himself could make it. Adding this to teacher Wang's dish, it made 4 distinct flavors. But every time he ate a home-cooked meal like this, it all came down to 4 words, the taste of home. These 4 words don't mean the dish tastes just like a family recipe, but rather that the sight of it reminds him of his distant home. Yukai glanced at the others, still chatting and laughing, his voice full of laughter. He seemed to be alone, melancholy and sentimental here. Perhaps this was the sensibility of a scholar. He never imagined that one day he would find peace in the midst of chaos, possessing such a mindset. Zhang Zixuan nudged his elbow. When Yukai looked over, she whispered, "Brother, why do you love traveling?" She really liked the word travel. Perhaps it's because she's been filming since she was a child, she's never had time to explore the world. From the age of 9 until now, she's achieved some success. But precisely because of this, she can't leave the house much. School, home, filming. While filming allows her to travel all over the country, she barely has time to memorize her lines, so how can she find time to explore? So, she loves traveling, and she enjoys watching Yukai's live streams and travelogues. For Zhang Zixuan, the word travel embodies her vision of freedom, imbued with endless emotion and charm. And what does Yukai, who has always called himself a traveler on Weibo, actually think about travel? She's curious. Yukai, peeling lobsters with disposable gloves, tried to use his usual excuse for traveling, but suddenly noticed 2 cameras pointed at him. He paused. He had to change his words. I love traveling because I want to meet a better version of myself. Zhang Zixuan looked at Yukai with admiration. Wow, what a beautiful statement. He Jiang put down his glass and said with a smile, we should invite more intellectuals like Yukai to visit us. I always feel that the cultural level of our mushroom house soars when we start talking. Kiwei asked, why do you say that? Can traveling help you find a better version of yourself? Revenge for that earlier conversation. Yukai placed the freshly peeled lobster meat in Zhang Zixuan's bowl, removed his disposable gloves, looked at Kiwei and said, I set out from home, with a heart forever pursuing, encountering stunning scenery, meeting unique people, and encountering historical sites steeped in history. Through each journey, I encountered the long-lost, ever-warming self. At this moment, the sun is shining, the breeze is gentle, and you are just right. With that, Yukai gave Kiwei a subtle wink. You little brat, you're still trying to trick me. Kiwei was instantly touched. Her heart was pounding, but he was a family man. Stay calm. Wang Lei clapped his hands and exclaimed, that's a well-spoken statement. It's well written. I think it could be included in your next travelogue. He himself enjoyed traveling, but he didn't share Yukai's feelings, nor could he articulate his pursuits. Yukai often said, leaving the familiar, one finds emotion and romance in the unfamiliar. Perhaps everyone dreams of traveling, traversing the vast landscapes of the world, witnessing the customs and cultures of the world, freely wandering between heaven and earth, and leaving behind a legacy of exquisite writing. Such a grand and beautiful dream may seem distant, but it's not unattainable. Wang Lei felt that if Yukai was willing, he could achieve such a feat. He was only 24, very young. Unlike writers, creators, and inventors, the older they get, the more they read and the more they travel, the more profound their stories become. After traveling so far, do you have any regrets? He Jiang asked. Yukai thought for a moment and said, yes, this is probably the regret of my whole life. Hearing Yukai say this, everyone became curious and quickly asked, what was it? Can you tell me? What's inconvenient? Yukai smiled. It was my first trip to the snowy region. I went there by plane, and I wandered around a lot. The scenery was beautiful, and I took lots of photos. Peng Peng said, that's great. What's there to regret? Yukai sighed and said, but then someone told me that the most beautiful part of the snowy region isn't the least mountains or the peach blossoms in Ningxi, but the cycling route, The Sichuan-Tibet Highway. I don't know if she's right, but every time I think about it, I feel like that trip to the snowy region wasn't complete. That's just how life is, Wang Lei said, holding up his glass. If it were truly complete, it wouldn't be life, but a story, a movie. Isn't that the case with your novels too? Zhaolinger, Mei Changsu. Wang Lei was right. His own novels didn't have a complete plot either. In the first book, the heroine died, and in the second, the protagonist died. Speaking of novels, He Jiang suddenly asked, what exactly does On Jupiter, the song you sang on Singer, mean? You said it was Mei Changsu's character song, and the lyrics were okay, but I still don't understand the title. Yes, Zhang Zixuan said, also puzzled for a long time. You still don't understand it? Ye Kai asked. It's not that profound. Ye Kai said, the ancient Chinese discovered that there is a star that is relatively bright, easy to observe, and easy to use as a reference point, that is Jupiter. Jupiter is a planet, large and bright. It moves slowly across the sky, moving a little bit every year. It takes about 12 years to complete one circle around the sky. 12 years later, Lin Shu is back. It's not too late to return today, to meet old friends again, and to be as innocent as a young man. Chapter 168. Do you like this kind of life? After finishing the meal, they chatted in the living room and didn't start to rest until 10 o'clock. Clean bedding was spread on the bed, which was probably called a kang. It was very long and had 6 quilts spread on it, very close to each other. But Ye Kai didn't have the habit of snoring. Anyone who snores in such an occasion would be embarrassed. Not long after lying down, Ye Kai fell asleep and didn't even hear He Jiang calling his name. In the darkness, He Jiang said to Wang Lei, falling asleep. Wang Lei used his mobile phone to handle some work and chatted with He Jiang in a low voice, you must be tired. You dug so many bamboo shoots today. This is quite strange. How can you know so many things at such a young age? In the evening, Ye Kai danced the dance he knew in the living room and spoke several languages from different countries. That's talent. He Jiang pulled the blanket over him and slid into it. I used to think Ye Kai was like Tao Yuanming. What kind of person? Planting beans at the foot of the southern mountain, the grass grows but the bean sprouts are sparse. Tao Yuanming, so famous, couldn't even grow vegetables, but Ye Kai knows how to work after playing around for a while. Wang Lei turned off his phone and slid into the blanket. Just like you said, that's talent. Go to sleep. A few minutes later, the production team turned off the last light. Silence, a dark night tinged with the chirping of insects. This was the sound Ye Kai particularly enjoyed. Sometimes, when he couldn't sleep, he'd deliberately find music like this to listen to, or sometimes just listen to the sound of rain. Absolute silence only brought fear, but it was precisely these faint sounds that filled the night with a breath of life. After falling asleep, time seemed to speed up. Before he could even finish savoring a life in his dream, Ye Kai woke to the sound of music from downstairs. Did it sound like Dao and Kiwei? Ye Kai sat up and rubbed his sleepy eyes. Only Peng Peng was still sleeping soundly with an eye mask on. Everyone else had already folded their quilts and gone downstairs. Ye Kai also got up, put on another set of clothes he brought with him, and went downstairs. By this time, it was already bright outside. Down the stairs was the living room, and singing was still echoing from time to time. Time struck a chord, completing our performance. Suddenly, a colorful eternity played. Colorful eternity. That's right. Kiwei saw Ye Kai coming downstairs and asked, how did you sleep last night? Great. Ye Kai walked down the stairs and asked, what's going on? Are you teaching Dao to sing? Yes, Dao wants to learn a Chinese song, and I can't think of a good song to teach. So I promoted my own songs, haha. He Jiang had just fed the ducklings and returned to the mushroom house. Seeing Ye Kai, he said, you're up, Ye Kai. Have you had breakfast? Not yet, said Ye Kai. He Jiang noticed the director's suggestion and smiled at Ye Kai, saying, your meal times aren't always fixed when you're traveling, are they? Yes, indeed. Sometimes I eat very late. Then you need to take care of your stomach. I recommend. He Jiang paused. Ye Kai, seeing his expression, immediately understood and picked up a cup of rice porridge from the table. I assume you're referring to Jiang's Honghaogu rice porridge. Yes, Jiang's Honghaogu rice porridge is perfect for travelers like you. Just add hot water and you can enjoy a piping hot rice porridge. He Jiang took the Haogu rice porridge from Ye Kai and said, I'll make you a cup. Jiangshonghagu rice porridge. Yukai was speechless as he watched teacher He go to get the hot water. This product placement was incredibly hardcore. This morning, Peng Peng and Daho were collecting the nets they had set yesterday, while Wang Lei took Yukai to the village lake to fish. In the middle of the lake stood a small island, about 500 or 600 square meters. Sitting on the island, one could see the rippling clear spring water all around, and occasionally, fish could be seen leaping from the water. This finally gave Yukai a taste of the life he had always dreamed of. Before lunch, another celebrity arrived. He was a popular movie star in recent years, but Yukai hadn't paid much attention to the entertainment industry in those years. He didn't really know him. Before leaving, Director Chen approached Yukai and said, "We need to film a behind-the-scenes segment for a show. We'll need a few minutes of your time, Mr. Yi." "No problem," Yukai said. He had been paid to come here, so he still had to cooperate. Yukai walked over to a stool they had prepared and sat down. Director Chen asked, "Teacher Yi, what do you think of the life you long for?" "It's great. Escape the tedium of city life. Come here to see the beautiful mountains and rivers, and experience a different kind of mood. It's a great show. Is this the life you long for?" "Well, I'm not sure it's the life I long for, but these 2 days here have really relaxed me. My concept of time is different than usual. I just dug a few bamboo shoots, and it's almost dark. Or I've just caught a fish in the morning, and it's almost lunchtime. Time flies. Experiencing this new life here, whether digging bamboo shoots or stoking a fire and chopping wood, gives me a sense of focus. I think this kind of focus is very important for modern people." Director Chen nodded, shook Yukai's hand, and said, "I look forward to teacher you coming to our show next time. By the way, how about you write a copy for yourself?" "What copy?" "During the show, when teacher Yu leaves, a few lines of text will appear on the TV screen." Yukai quickly declined, saying, No, I can't write that. Isn't that just writing a review? Others can write about themselves, but what's the point of writing about yourself? Forget it. It has nothing to do with literary style. Authenticity is key." When Kiwei returned to her room, packed her things, and went downstairs, she was also packing hers. Although they hadn't come together, they were leaving together. Unlike when they arrived, there would be a car parked not far from the mushroom house. Guests only needed a few minutes' walk to board the bus leaving the mushroom house. As they prepared to leave, both of them felt heavy-hearted. Although Yukai felt that the leisurely life in a mountain village wasn't what he wanted, but living and eating together, and having to part ways with newly made friends after just one day, it wouldn't be a good mood for either of them. "Are you done packing?" Yukai asked. Kiwei nodded, sighed, and said, "Actually, I'd like to stay a few days longer, if it weren't for the show." "You and I are thinking the same thing." Yukai actually had the same idea, but that's just how this show works. Although the production team hadn't interfered with anything Yukai did since he arrived, it was impossible for a guest to stay for several days before leaving. Helping Kiwei carry her suitcase, the two of them walked down the stairs, one in front of the other. Teacher He was waiting in the living room with a few others. Seeing them coming down, he smiled and said, "Come on, Yukai, Kiwei, let's take a picture." A few people stood behind the table, their faces bright with smiles. Yukai pressed little H onto the table. A tool from the production team tapped his phone. A family portrait that wasn't really a family portrait was captured. "Damn it. I didn't finish 6,000 words. I'll start writing 2 hours earlier tomorrow." Chapter 169 April in the World. It seemed like he'd taken this car when he arrived. Yukai glanced at the young man driving up ahead. Sure enough, it was him. It was the man who had met him at the airport the day before, just after he'd landed. "Brother Ki, Teacher Yi, are you coming to the airport?" the man in the passenger seat asked. "I'll just go downtown," Yukai said. March and April are perhaps Hangzhou's most beautiful months. Since Yukai had arrived at this time, why rush through? He'd at least have to visit a few of his favorite Hangzhou attractions. So, he decided to spend a day or two here. It might be hard to imagine such a place, one whose origins date back to the earliest days of China. Stories about it are widely circulated and still recounted today. It's Hangzhou. It's a place that has left a lasting impression on the landscape of China. Yukai got off the car alone downtown, while Kiwei and her team continued on their way to the airport. For them, their arrival in Hangzhou was over. But Yukai's journey had just begun. There's heaven above, and Suzhou and Hangzhou below. This proverb, passed down for countless years, has drawn tourists from all over the country. Before today, Yukai's impression of Hangzhou was inseparable from rain. Indeed, in the days before Yukai flew to Hangzhou, the city had been overcast and rainy daily, and only since yesterday had it begun to clear up. Therefore, when Yukai went to dig bamboo shoots, he could see so many lush, yet tear-stained flowers and plants. He gazed at the sky for a moment. After confirming that it wouldn't rain again, Yukai called a taxi and headed towards his destination. For outsiders like Yukai, there's one place in Hangzhou that they absolutely must visit: West Lake. Yukai was incredibly excited to see it at its most beautiful. This anticipation, inspired by the descriptions of Hangzhou in textbooks from elementary school to university, as well as the movies and TV series he watched growing up, had always instilled in Yukai the belief that this was the most beautiful place in all of China. Look, as an ancient poem goes, the water's shimmering light is most beautiful on sunny days, while the mountain's misty beauty is even more wondrous when it rains. If West Lake is compared to Zaishi, then whether she wears light or heavy makeup, she looks beautiful no matter how she looks. Yukai felt this was the most beautiful description of a scenic spot. After getting in the car, the driver asked, "Where are we going?" Yukai unpacked his travel bag and hugged it, saying, "To the broken bridge at West Lake." As the driver started, he smiled and said, "The broken bridge makes sense. There's no other broken bridge in Hangzhou." Yukai nodded in agreement, saying, "Yes, there's no other broken bridge in the world, just like there's no other Eiffel Tower in Paris." Glancing at the cars behind him, the taxi merged into the flow of traffic. Hangzhou is also home to many ancient buildings, a city steeped in ancient charm. As the taxi navigated the streets, Yukai spotted numerous street entrances resembling memorial archways and, from a distance, caught a glimpse of an inn. If it weren't for the overnight stay near West Lake, Yukai would have preferred to experience a modern inn. A place's architectural style can embody the locals' lifestyle and even their personalities. He'd recently been reading Lin Huang's books, and her descriptions of architecture were incredibly insightful. After all, no architect in the world has achieved greater literary success than Lin Huang. No writer understands architecture more than Lin Huang. Yukai's fondness for Lin Huang stems from the line, "You are the April of the world." About 40 minutes later, Yukai saw West Lake from the car window. Thanks to years of preparation, Yukai's heart raced the moment he saw it. But there it was, peaceful and tranquil, its ripples gently rippled by the breeze. It took Yukai's eyes only 10 seconds for excitement to fade. The stillness of West Lake seemed to smile and say to Yukai, "I've always been here, why are you so excited?" Yes, West Lake has always been there, why am I so excited? Now that he'd seen West Lake, the broken bridge shouldn't be far away. Yukai pulled out his phone to pay the bill. The driver stopped at an intersection and said, "Just follow the road to the broken bridge. This road is closed." Yukai paid with WeChat and said, "Thank you, driver." After the car drove away, Yukai looked at the road the driver had pointed. He didn't need directions, the broken bridge was already within sight. Quite a few tourists were on it, and not just on it. On the lakeside where Yukai stood, many people were snapping photos with their phones. The bridge was beautiful, and its unique design was one of the reasons it had survived so long and remained relevant. It could even be considered an outstanding piece of architectural design today. While China's current economy may not rival that of other countries, and its cultural landscape will take time to improve, its bridges and roads have always been ahead of the rest of the world. As they continued along the road, West Lake was essentially a large park in Hangzhou. General admission was free. The only attractions that charged fees were attractions like Lifang Pagoda, Yellow Dragon Cave, and Lingang Temple. Yukai had finally discovered that any tourist attraction that charged a fee was actually unnecessary. If one wanted to see art, they could go to a museum. The paid attractions were simply replicas of ancient buildings rebuilt in recent decades. A few minutes later, the broken bridge suddenly appeared before Yukai's eyes, unveiling its mysterious veil. It wasn't mysterious at all. It was just a bridge, a stone bridge, connecting two banks. Unlike Paris's Pont Neuf, which boasts centuries of history, it remains the city's commercial center, bustling with painters, booksellers, artists creating their own plays, street vendors, and even doctors performing dentists. The West Lake Broken Bridge was merely a tourist attraction. In front of the bridge stood a small pavilion, housing a stone tablet bearing the inscription "Broken Bridge," residual snow. However, someone unfamiliar with calligraphy might mistake it for Lulu Shuzu. The tablet claimed it was written by Emperor Kangxi of the Qin dynasty. Yukai stood before the stone tablet, savoring it for a long time. He murmured, "It seems so. It's swollen, swollen." Several security guards in the distance stared at Yukai, fearing he might do something awful to the stone tablet. Fortunately, Yukai stood there for a moment before leaving, much to the relief of the security guards. Standing at the bridgehead, one can take in the distant mountains and nearby waters. Although April is considered the most beautiful month of the year, it's not the best time to visit a broken bridge. Broken bridge with remaining snow refers to the fact that after a winter snowfall, the ice and snow on the sunny side of the bridge melt, but the shady side still retains a silvery appearance. From above, the bridge is famous for appearing to be broken, but not yet. But now, the snow has completely melted into water. The endless green lotus leaves reaching the sky. That time hasn't arrived yet. The lotus flowers aren't in full bloom yet, and there aren't many lotus leaves. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 171st Experience. The most famous story about this bridge is undoubtedly the broken bridge in the snow. Beyond that, there's the love story of Sushian and White Snake, both of which tales reflect the romantic sentiment that has permeated the broken bridge from ancient times to the present day. It's amusing to think of which dynasty connected the legend of White Snake on Mount Emei with the legend of White Snake in Huangzhou. Yukai isn't being self-deprecating, but the mention of Sichuan province inevitably brings to mind its recognizable dialect. Leaning on the bridge for a long time, feeling the first spring breeze after winter, gazing at the clear waters beneath his feet and the emerald willows in the distance, Yukai finally understood why the ancients loved Westlake so much. They even wrote hundreds of poems about it. Yukai could even imagine, once the cold winter was over, gathering a few friends for a leisurely cruise. Willows shaded the lakeside, and pleasure boats lined the water, singing lost ancient tunes. Or perhaps I could walk alone across the broken bridge, gazing at the distant mountains and nearby waters of Westlake, and occasionally find inspiration, composing moving poems that have been passed down for millennia. What sentiments did the ancient people of Hangzhou harbor when they built this Westlake? Yukai crossed a broken bridge and arrived at an island in the center of the lake, called Gushan. Gushan is the largest island in Westlake, surrounded by shimmering blue waters and lush greenery. Emperors of the Song and Qing dynasties built palaces and imperial gardens here, occupying most of Gushan. Later, it was transformed into Shuangshan Park, becoming one of Gushan's scenic spots. Playing has now become tourism. Playing was once about enjoying the wild pleasure of a picnic with friends, accompanied by the beauty of the surrounding scenery, a truly joyful experience. However, with a growing population and increasingly convenient transportation, nationally renowned attractions like Westlake have lost their original joy. Instead, it's about the curiosity of seeing something new, and as Yukai often says, finding joy in unfamiliar places. And that's quite good. There's a pavilion in Shongshan Park with a banner above it reading Westlake, the world's most beautiful scenery. The couplets on either side read, "Water and mountains are everywhere, bright and beautiful." The lower couplet reads, "Sunny and rainy, always curious and curious." Yukai stood outside the pavilion, reciting this couplet over and over again. Water and mountains are bright and beautiful, are they curious when it rains? Water and mountains are bright and beautiful, water and mountains are everywhere, bright and beautiful. Sunny and rainy, wonderful, sunny and rainy, always curious. Yukai found it intriguing. Perhaps it was because he was overthinking, but in just a short time, he had found several solutions to this couplet. He planned to study it further and eventually check online. He wanted to see if his own ideas outweighed those of others over the centuries. Water and mountains are bright, water and mountains are beautiful, bright and beautiful everywhere. Sunny and rainy, wonderful, sunny and rainy, always curious. 10 already. Okay, think of a few more. He stood for a while, ready to sit down on the stool behind him to rest, when he heard the faint sound of a guzheng. This was the second time Yukai had seen this kind of instrument in the past 2 years. He approached after hearing the sound and walked 70 or 80 steps. Yukai spotted a girl in Hanfu, Chinese traditional clothing, playing the gazihen. Many tourists were around her, recording with their phones, then taking it back and typing a few words. They were definitely posting on their social media feeds. No one stopped to watch the master's music at the subway station, but here, as soon as a beautiful woman sat down, everyone gathered around her. Were you here to see her or listen to the gazihen? Yukai waited for a few minutes, and after listening to a piece, he asked, "What's the name of this piece?" The girl looked up, saw a handsome man, and smiled. "It's Fisherman's Evening Song. Everyone who plays the gazihen knows it." "Handsome, do you want to learn it?" He was a little interested. But Yukai figured self-study would be fine, he wouldn't be in Hangzhou long. He just wanted to know the name of the song and search it on NetEase Cloud Music when he got home to see if he could find it. This kind of ancient music is truly visual. Closing my eyes, I could almost feel the images associated with the music floating in my mind. Yukai nodded and stood up to leave. Hey, handsome, why are you leaving? You want to learn? The tuition is very cheap. How about I add you on WeChat and chat? Handsome? Hello. Seeing her gently sitting on a stool playing the gazihen earlier, Yukai had thought she would be a very quiet person. But her words completely ruined the quaint atmosphere. Someone took a photo with their phone, and Yukai quickly slipped away. A few minutes later, Yukai lay on a bench, thinking to himself, I really need to learn another instrument. Right now, Yukai only knows guitar. He had always wanted to learn piano, but today he thought that if he had the time, it would be nice to learn a traditional Chinese instrument. Just here on West Lake, boating alone, flute in front of me, it's pretty cool, just as good as playing the piano. So it was decided, I would learn a traditional instrument when I get back. Walking back from the broken bridge, Yukai checked several hotels on his phone, but there were no rooms, so he booked a B&B close to the scenic area. This was Yukai's first time staying in a B&B, and he didn't know the difference between a B&B and a hotel. Opening the map, Yukai glanced at the route. Normally, Yukai wouldn't have needed to open the map a second time, but after reaching the end of the map, he searched the street for a long time and couldn't find the single-family building mentioned in the description. So Yukai opened the map a second time to confirm. Finally, he called. Hello, Yukai said. Hello, are you the guest who will be staying here today? I've been waiting for your call for a long time. Have you arrived in Hangzhou yet? I'll pick you up at the airport. Wait a minute, didn't I say I was going to Hangzhou today? Isn't the point marked on the map for your B&B near Hangzhou number 14 middle school? I'm here, where's your house? Yukai chose to stay here because it was close. Otherwise, wouldn't it be better for Yukai to go back to the inn-style hotel he had seen earlier? If it wasn't here, marking the location randomly would be deceptive. Ah, you're here. Sorry. I'm coming out to pick you up now. Is there a big sign for Jinxi Ushiandi Business Center near you? Yes, Yukai said. Then wait for me under the sign for a few minutes, I'll be there soon. After hanging up the phone, Yukai looked at the West Lake in the distance. This place is really close to the West Lake. Yukai had thought before, if he stayed here, would he be able to see the beautiful scenery of the West Lake at night? Unfortunately, all the better hotel rooms were taken up. The recent period is the peak tourist season for West Lake, and there are a lot of people. Yukai originally wanted to check out directly, but the other party was so humble after receiving the call, and Yukai felt a little embarrassed. So he decided to go and see their homestay. Chapter 171 Check-in at the B&B. It didn't take long. A few minutes later, Yukai saw someone hurriedly walking towards the agreed location. She had short hair and glasses, and looked slightly older than Yukai. Glancing around, her eyes fell on Yukai. Hello, is this the Yunshu Mountain B&B you booked? She asked. Can you see the lake? Yukai asked directly. She smiled and said, you can, don't worry. If you're not sure, I can take you there first. I'm so sorry, there's a problem with our B&B's location. The software needs a few days of review before it can be fixed. Okay, take me there. It didn't seem far from here, otherwise she wouldn't have made it in just a few minutes. Yukai was standing on Fenki Road, very close to Fenbo Pavilion in West Lake. Just across the road into the West Lake scenic area, you could see Fenbo Pavilion. It would be nice if the villa we just saw was habitable. It was built on the lakeside. Its main functional rooms were on land, but a building extended from it, rising above the surface of the lake. It was an exquisite Western-style pavilion, just 20 to 30 centimeters above the water. Sitting inside felt like sailing on West Lake. As long as the cost didn't exceed 100,000 yuan, Yukai wanted to experience the villa all to himself. Unfortunately, it was a historic building. Although ancient, it couldn't have been built more than 200 years ago, with a touch of early Republican style. Judging by the decor, it probably dates back to the Westernization movement. Speaking of which, Yikai and the owner of this B&B had taken a detour onto Bishan Street. "Is your B&B inside West Lake?" She nodded proudly, saying, "Yes, we were so busy opening our business that we didn't notice we had a misplaced address on the map. That's the restaurant owned by one of my partners." No wonder. Yukai had noticed this B&B because the description mentioned a view of West Lake. And the price was quite high. Normally, a building so far from the lake wouldn't command such high prices. Because of this, many tourists, seeing the price, chose to stay near this B&B. Yukai hadn't even looked at the price. As long as it stayed within his expectations, it made no difference to him whether it was 10 yuan or 3,000 yuan a night. Bishan Street was actually already within the West Lake scenic area, so it was normal for a night stay there to be more expensive. "My name is Zhou Yi. Our Yanshushan B&B has only been open for 2 or 3 days, and you're our first guest." Yukai looked around and said, "The location is great. It'll be very popular once you update the information. Which hotel in West Lake isn't doing well these days?" He didn't venture far into the scenic area, but stopped near its northwest gate. The street across from the lake was only one side with buildings, and it was full of restaurants, bars, and hotels. Don't expect the prices to be cheap. Not far from this row of buildings was a 3-story building hidden in the woods. Zhou Yi stopped and said, "That's it. How is it?" "There's a room on the 3rd floor with a view of West Lake." Honestly, it's a bit surprising. It certainly wasn't luxurious. This house might have been nice a few decades ago, but it certainly can't compare to the newly constructed streets and buildings nearby. Yet, Yukai felt more comfortable here than staying in the nearby upscale hotels. Amidst the tourist-heavy West Lake scenic area, there was a house like this, tucked away in a corner. It was isolated from the hustle and bustle, yet close enough to be just down the stairs to the bustling Bishan Street. "As long as you like it," Zhou Yi said. Entering the room, the decor transported Yukai back to the Shanghai beach of decades ago, the exquisite, antique-style chandelier, the paintings in the hallway, and the phonograph in the corner. "Does this thing work?" Yukai asked, pointing to the phonograph. "Yes," Zhou Yi said, turning it on. The high-quality sound of the record began to echo through the house. "Actually, many of the things in this room were made by my best friend and I. We only found the big pieces, like the phonograph and the chandelier, online." "Very nice. I like it," Yukai said. The house was in the style of a very old Western-style building. For some reason, West Lake is full of these buildings, ranging from a few hundred years old to a few decades old, but this small building couldn't be more than 50 years old. If the house's decoration were a fill-in-the-blank question, then the designer of this B&B would have given Yukai his favorite answer. The house's location alone amazed Yukai, and the B&B's decor and design each showcased the designer's ingenuity, beautiful and elegant. "Did you decorate the house?" "My best friend is a designer. She designed the decor." She nodded in understanding and asked, "Then I'll stay here." Fill out the information. If this was a B&B, Yukai loved it. The difference between B&Bs and hotels is that each B&B attracts guests with its own unique style. For example, if you travel to Mongolia and can't find a hotel for the night, you stay at a Mongolian home. That's also a B&B. You'll experience Mongolian hospitality, kumis, butter tea, and horse sausage. Experiencing someone else's life is the B&B's philosophy. Normally, though, Yukai would still choose a hotel. Meeting such a B&B owner was a stroke of luck. In any case, hotels are more formal and safer than B&Bs. Although it is a B&B, check-in information is still required. 10 minutes later, Zhou Yi took Yukai to a room on the 3rd floor. The stairs were very small, and no one would consider walking side by side on such stairs unless they were conjoined twins. The room was very bright, and the balcony had obviously been renovated. It was a curved floor-to-ceiling glass. The balcony could be seen after the curtains were opened. It could be said that a balcony with a wide view was forcibly opened up in the room. From here, you can see the water of West Lake in the distance. It was not dark yet, and you could still see people boating on the lake, taking leisurely photos. From further away, you could only see the lights on. Yukai checked the room, put down his things, went downstairs and asked, "What are we having for dinner today? Our meal is relatively simple, maybe it's not to your taste. What do you want to eat? Can I order food? Is the treatment in the B&B so good?" "Not bad." We also ate together in the B&B I lived in before, although they didn't care much about my eating habits. But they are them, I am me, and this is my shop, don't you think? Well, as long as I am happy, I'm not picky about food, and my appetite is average, so don't worry too much about me. Although the meal may be ordinary home-cooked dishes, this kind of home-cooked dishes are obviously healthier than the stir-fried dishes with a lot of oil and salt in the restaurant. Chapter 172 Oil Paper Umbrella. Joyi is the main initiator of this B&B. She has 3 partners in total. One is her best friend, an interior designer whom she always mentions. The other is the provider of the house, a student who is still studying at Hangzhou University. This house is actually a house in that person's family, and no one has lived in it for a long time. Joyi launched her own B&B concept on the internet, and several people hit it off, and thus this B&B was established. Before dinner, Joyi's best friend came back. Most white-collar women in big cities live a very petty bourgeois life, and this one is no exception. She is wearing a lot of famous brands, from clothes to shoes, handbags in her hands to hats on her head. The perfume smells good, but according to Joyi, this person already has a boyfriend. Like Yukai, they are in a long-distance relationship, and they only see each other a few times a month. The moment she saw Yukai, she was instantly excited and asked, "Yukai? Brother Kai? Your brother Kai, right? I've seen your live stream, I'm a fan. Hello, 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 hello," she said, seeing the dishes on the table. "It's so hard for people to come to Hangzhou, and you only cook these dishes? Where's the Westlake vinegar fish? Where's all the Hangzhou dishes you know?" Joyi was bewildered, She had so much to complain about, she didn't know where to start. Who knew a guest at our B&B would be your idol? You cook Westlake vinegar fish for a guest? Treat him with all the finest food and wine? We've already spent all our money, okay? And who knew a celebrity would be here? Joyi glanced at Yukai. I'd heard of his name, but I don't think I'd seen his face. And don't you like Xiaozan? Brother Kai, why don't we go out for dinner? I'll treat you. No, these are already great. Haha, thank you. The dishes weren't bad, actually. They were just a bit bland because the girl had to keep her figure in check, but blandness is also a flavor, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, Brother Kai, how many days are you staying in Hangzhou? Will you be doing a live stream? Probably not. This person peppered the meal with questions, but Yukai did his best to answer what he could, speaking without much effort. But he forgot to leave his WeChat. Yukai finally understood why most public figures and their friends have large followings. After quickly finishing his dinner, Yukai said, I'm going out for a walk and will be back before 10 o'clock. Is it convenient for me to ask you to open the door then? Joyi shook her head and said, it's okay. I won't be asleep by then. Going upstairs to find his camera, Yukai nodded to them and left the B&B. While the B&B was nice, it did have some inconveniences. Bishan Road was the street where Yukai had gotten off the bus. Exit the B&B and walk onto Bishan Street. Continue walking straight ahead to where Yukai had gotten off. It's in a straight line with a broken bridge, so you can get there. Alternatively, walking from Shentangwan Pavilion to Fenbo Pavilion is also possible. If you want to visit Westlake, you can actually walk all the way around it. Since Westlake is circular, no matter where you start, you'll end up back where you started. Walk to the broken bridge. Countless lights illuminate the bridge, and from afar, it looks like countless fireflies perched on its surface. As long as you ignore the modern lights, you'll definitely see beauty in them. In this world, one shouldn't take things too literally. Sometimes, even if you know something is fake, you still have to think about it. I heard that the broken bridge has a musical fountain at night, but seeing the crowds of tourists remain the same compared to the daytime, Yukai decided to continue walking along the lake, waiting to return when he wanted to. The two most famous roads in Westlake are Bishan Road and Nanshan Road. These roads run directly north and south of the lake. Compared to Nanshan Road, Bishan Road has more hotels, B&Bs, and restaurants. The dream of living by the lake, with a window facing Westlake and a door facing Gushan Mountain, can only be realized on Bishan Road. Therefore, Since ancient times, Bishan Road has been the home of generations of literati and poets visiting Westlake. Known as the most cultural street, it's dotted with calligraphy and Chinese painting galleries. A vast array of Chinese and foreign architecture dazzled Yukai's eyes. Ancient, modern, and contemporary Chinese architecture blended together here. Walking along this street, one could say there was a new scene with every step. Yukai felt sentimental, feeling that every ancient building on Bishan Street, even every willow tree by Westlake, held its own story, waiting to be discovered. Walking along the road, Yukai felt as if he had Westlake on his left and history on his right. Darkness gradually fell. Yukai looked at the still long street ahead. Forget it, a day wouldn't be enough to walk it all. On the way back, perhaps because of the color night, a light drizzle began to fall. Many tourists flocked to the buildings to avoid getting wet. What a nice rain, Yukai thought. How could one say they'd ever visited Westlake in the rain without actually visiting it? Yukai was even thankful for the rain, as it had sent most of the tourists packing for home. But to experience the beauty of the lake in the rain, you need a prop. There's no oil paper umbrella shop near Westlake. Yukai searched the street for a long time but couldn't find one. He walked into a handicraft shop and asked the female clerk, "Hello. Hello, what would you like to buy?" "Sorry, it's raining outside and I want to buy some Hangzhou oil paper umbrellas. Is there a shop like that nearby?" Being handsome is a pass. Back in school, Yukai used to be able to get by just fine with a small pass. Now, with a large pass, he wears clothes that aren't expensive but definitely not cheap. As long as the person you ask is a woman of the right age, no one will refuse to help you. "Is that so?" she whispered, glancing behind her and pointing to the road. "Go around here. To the right of the intersection, there's an old house with a peeling paint sign that says grocery store, but it's a bit expensive." "Thank you." "You're welcome." Yukai received a rather sweet smile. Sure enough, there are still many kind people. Following the clerk's directions, Yukai quickly found the place she pointed. There was an old shop on the ancient bluestone road. It was hard to tell how old it was, but it looked very old. The owner was collecting umbrellas one by one into the shop. Yukai hurriedly walked up and asked, "Old man, I want to buy an umbrella." The drizzle was not going to last long. He wanted to stroll along the Westlake, so he had to buy an umbrella quickly. Otherwise, walking on the street in the rain would not be very interesting. Others would only secretly curse him as a psychopath. The owner looked at Yukai and said, "Come in and see what you like. They're all handmade." Chapter 173. Girl, your hair can fall off. Making oil paper umbrellas using traditional methods is time-consuming and labor-intensive, so most of the oil paper umbrellas you see today while traveling in the Jiangnan region are industrially produced handicrafts. These handicrafts are generally more beautiful than handmade ones. However, beauty isn't the only criterion for judging a work of art. If Yukai were just an ordinary tourist, he would also find the oil paper umbrellas in craft shops more beautiful, but they still felt something was missing. But he now understands that the reason industrial production can never replace handmade art is because of that unique unreality. Ridiculous, right? So that's why. A good photographer can capture people or scenery with 100% authenticity, while a good painter can capture 300% of the spirit. The most important thing is this unreality. The same scene, viewed through modern machinery, may be two completely different images in the mind of a painter, and the resulting images are therefore different. Yukai is both a photographer and a painter. He uses photography to record scenes authentically, allowing everyone to create their own images in their minds. Therefore, the difference between photography and painting is quite significant. Modern assembly line products and traditional handmade works are also completely different in Yukai's eyes. Yukai walked into the shop. It was called a general store, but the only goods inside were oil paper umbrellas. Shelves previously used for other goods now held finished umbrellas, already drying. "Did you make all these umbrellas by yourself?" "Yes, I'm the only one making handmade umbrellas in the entire Westlake scenic area." "You're here just in time. These umbrellas will be delivered in 2 days." Yukai selected an oil paper umbrella he liked from the shelf and curiously asked, "Deliver? Where? Aren't they selling them back at Westlake?" "There are people who specialize in collecting them on the Southern Song Imperial Street. They don't accept handmade umbrellas here." The room held about 50 finished and unfinished umbrellas. Yukai couldn't see the calligraphy and paintings on the closed umbrellas, but the unfinished ones were incredibly exquisite. The white umbrella paper was painted in ink with scenes often seen in traditional Chinese painting. They depicted red carp in a lotus pond, wild geese soaring against a blue sky, mandarin ducks nestling together in the water, emerald green lotus leaves, pink lotus flowers, and graceful ladies. While the Chinese paintings on the umbrellas weren't as polished as those of national masters, they were undoubtedly the artist's painstaking effort, embodying the artist's deepest understanding of Jiangnan and West Lake. Yukai found an umbrella depicting bamboo leaves. Compared to the others, this one was a bit more elegant, with no elaborate detail on the paper, just a few delicately painted falling leaves, the faint bamboo appearing as if veiled in mist. This one, how much? 320. Compared to modern umbrellas, it was indeed a bit pricey. But Yukai liked it, so he bought it. 300 yuan for a handicraft didn't seem expensive, what mattered was that he loved it. Opening his umbrella, Yukai walked out of the old shop and under the eaves where he had previously taken shelter. The raindrops grew heavier and heavier. The drops hit the umbrella, breaking into small splashes and creating a pleasant sound. Yukai loved rainy days. Sitting at home on a rainy day, whether reading or sleeping, felt more peaceful than usual. But going out shopping on a rainy day was something Yukai rarely had the leisure to do. It was already dark, and the alley was deserted. Day and night, the lights were ablaze, the yellow glow giving Yukai a sense of time travel, as if he'd been transported back to ancient Hangzhou. At that moment, a chill that threatened to pierce his soul washed over him. Time seemed to slow down, yet it also seemed to cease. His senses were heightened, and the sound of raindrops hitting umbrellas and the bluestone pavement was like a symphony with no end in sight. In the distance, the sounds of tourists playing and dogs barking. Yukai's pace slowed even further. They say the Jiangnan region today has lost its former charm, but how could a few decades or even centuries erode the millennia-old spirit of a city? If you search carefully, you'll find the Jiangnan of your dreams. In the distance, a group of tourists was walking towards Yukai. There were about 7 or 8 of them, men and women combined. Some held folding umbrellas, others oil paper umbrellas bought from craft shops outside. They chatted and laughed as they turned into the alley. One girl, walking at the end of the group, stood out from the rest of the group's cheerful atmosphere. Her expression mirrored Yukai's own, cold and uncertain. Yukai and her stared at each other for a few seconds, each surprised by the resemblance. Yukai was trying to write something, so his mind was so active that he didn't pay attention to the expression on his face. Now, seeing a girl so similar to him, what was she thinking? They both seemed oblivious to the people around them. They smiled at each other and passed by. After walking a long way alone, Yukai looked back at the person. Still separated from his companions, his figure gradually disappeared in the rain. Then a strong wind blew, and a torrent of rain poured down on the roadside fence with a loud thud. The rain washed away everything, and the scene he had just witnessed seemed like an illusion, a result of Yukai's sudden inspiration. He clutched his oil paper umbrella and continued walking towards the West Lake. His original purpose for buying the oil paper umbrella was to walk along the lake. He wondered if anyone was still on the broken bridge at this hour, raining. It was so late, and it was still raining, so it shouldn't be raining anymore, right? He'd better walk back. If the broken bridge were deserted, I'd be able to fulfill my dream. Bishan Road was deserted now. The rain, which had fallen after dark, had left most people without umbrellas. Some tourists resting in hotels planned to leave tomorrow, and so the number of tourists on Bishan Road dwindled. The street lights were still bright, illuminating the entire road. The broken bridge was already faintly visible in the distance, its countless small lights transforming it into a long, flowing stream of light. This was a beauty even more beautiful than in ancient times. Yukai might not have been alone on this journey. He spotted others with the same idea as himself, umbrellas in hand, on Bishan Road, heading towards the broken bridge. But there weren't many people. This was just as well. The broken bridge was so long and wide, it could accommodate dozens of people without ruining its charm. Taking advantage of the night, Yukai and some like-minded companions walked up to the broken bridge. The street lights on the broken bridge were only visible from a distance, serving almost no purpose. On the other hand, the lights on either side, designed for viewing, were surprisingly bright. Lotuses, not yet fully bloomed, filled the lake. The sound of raindrops hitting the leaves resembled the clatter of an umbrella, though only careful listening could distinguish the difference. How bored must one be to do such a thing? But boredom is essential. Boredom can lead to reflection. If we spend the entire day dwelling on this and that, perhaps society will never develop. The broken bridge was silent from the daytime bustle. It seemed as if the rain had unleashed a poetic spirit in all the tourists who strolled along, umbrellas in hand. A young woman, hearing her companion's joke, laughed a few times, then quickly covered her mouth before smiling brightly, as if embarrassed by her earlier gaffe. The subtle beauty of an Oriental woman was fully on display. Seeing this scene, Yukai closed his eyes. The broken bridge in his mind shone brightly, and the clamor of countless vendors filled the air. On the bridge, there were scholars selling calligraphy and paintings, fortune-tellers with stoic demeanor, and vendors pushing carts laden with steamed white buns. A husband passed by, holding an umbrella for his wife. A beautiful woman stood by the bridge, admiring the beautiful scenery below. Lotuses blossomed beneath the bridge, boatmen paddled the lake, and the fragrance of cherry blossoms filled the air. Clang! It was as if someone behind him had dropped their pearl hairpin. Yukai smiled, opened his eyes, and continued walking. He thought he heard the sound of a man chasing him. Girl, 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 your hairpin has fallen. This is Hangzhou's most famous legend, the legend of the white snake, which has attracted countless tourists to the broken bridge for thousands of years. It was also told in a classic film, The Story of the White Snake. Yukai even thought he could hear familiar background music as he walked across the broken bridge. The rain was gradually subsiding. From the knees down, he was completely soaked. His white shoes, bought less than a month ago, seemed to have reached their end of life. He would probably have to buy a new pair at a shoe store tomorrow. If it weren't for protecting his camera, Yukai might have simply removed his umbrella. Yukai had already reached Gushan from Bishan Road, and now it was time to head back. Many tourists, unwilling to dodge the noise, visited the broken bridge at night. Even in the middle of the night, it seemed there were still tourists. This was the advantage of visiting domestic tourist attractions. Abroad, you wouldn't dare venture out alone at night. Holding an umbrella, Yukai brushed past pedestrians, singing a familiar tune. The beauty of West Lake, March weather, the spring rain is like wine, the willows are like smoke. Yun Shushan B&B. Zhou Yi sat on the bed, staring at her best friend with dead eyes. She had the same last name as Zhou Yi, Zhou Shu, but she was anything but ladylike. Why haven't you come back yet? Are you in danger? I told you it's too dangerous to live around here. There are too many people. People these days, you can't judge a person by their appearance. Yi, do you think we should go out and look for them? Zhou Yi saw her best friend nod after she finished speaking, and as if about to act immediately, she threw a pillow at her best friend. Enough. Just a star. Look at you. A star? Do you know how hard it is to meet a star? Last time I met a star on the street, the bodyguard wanted to isolate you hundreds of meters away. This guy was in close contact with us. Zhou Yi was about to refute, but at this time the doorbell rang. I'll go open it, Zhou Shu said. She went downstairs and took a look through the peephole. After finding that Yukai was the only one there, she opened the door and let Yukai in. Seeing that Yukai's clothes were half wet, she said, Brother Kai, why are you wet? Yukai looked at her puzzledly and said, because it rained. Then he smiled at her and said, rest early, I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. Chapter 174 Su Causeway Spring Dawn. Back in the room, I couldn't process the photos I'd taken today because I didn't bring my notebook. So I grabbed yesterday's clothes and went downstairs to shower. This house was truly beautifully decorated. Shanghai during the old days blended Chinese and international architectural styles, a truly remarkable oddity in architectural history. Yet, its strangeness was so exquisitely charming and captivating. At the time, foreign architectural styles flooded into China like waves. Architects, drawing on ancient and modern influences, blending Chinese and foreign influences, and blending elements from north and south, ultimately created a style that epitomized both Chinese and Western architectural art. Today, this style is rarely seen in urban areas. It's not that it's been eliminated, but rather that it's best suited not for modern commercial buildings of 1 or 200 square meters, but for small, 2 or 3-story Western-style buildings like this one. However, Yukai's favorite style was modern design. He loved the feeling of sunlight streaming into the rooms. If Yukai were designing his own home, he'd definitely have the largest room, the most spacious. No frills, just sunlight. Ideally, the window overlooks a garden. When it rains, You can see the raindrops pattering against the glass, the leaves dancing under the weight of the rain. After using their hairdryer to dry his hair, Yukai lay down on the soft bed in his room. As Yukai had imagined, the rain had completely stopped. A bright moon appeared in the sky, freshly washed by the rain, casting its radiance over Hangzhou, just as it had done thousands of years before. The next day, the sun was shining brightly. Yukai got up early, leaving home around 7 or 8 a.m. He planned to explore other attractions at West Lake today. However, he wasn't going to take the bus to Nanshan Road. Instead, he would descend along Bishan Road, then cross the lake from Su Causeway, walking from the north to the south. The ground was still stagnant from yesterday's rain, reflecting Yukai's figure. He squatted down and used the water to take a photo of the Yunshushan B&B. He felt quite comfortable staying there, and he could mention it when writing about his West Lake travelogue. Yukai quickly reached the place where he had returned the previous night. A little further ahead is another scenic spot, Jianpao Villa. It was built 100 years ago by Liu Jinzhao, the second son of Liu Yuang, the richest man in Nangshan. After resigning from office, he enjoyed traveling and building garden villas. The original Jianpao Villa covered 17 mu, approximately 16 acres, and contained dozens of rooms, all built according to the mountainside. The iron railings of the main building and terraces were all cast in Jianpao seal script. The villa, with its winding corridors, ponds, and rockery, exudes a distinct Jiangnan style. Today, however, the buildings within the villa grounds are scattered, with only the wall along the street still framing the curve of the lake. A white flower wall quietly separates nearly a century of time. Taxis are not available on this road, so anyone who wants to go anywhere must walk. But Yukai discovered something remarkable, a shared bike. He scanned the QR code to log in, then rode along Bishan Road, enjoying the lake breeze. Continuing further, he soon arrived at the legendary Su Causeway. The renowned Su Causeway Spring Dawn is considered one of the 10 scenic spots of West Lake. What are the 10 scenic spots of West Lake? Many ancient people visited West Lake and were overwhelmed by the sheer number of scenic spots. So, they gathered for a meal and came up with the idea of identifying the 10 most beautiful spots throughout the lake. This list has become known as the 10 scenic spots of West Lake. However, in modern times, the 10 scenic spots have undergone a re-evaluation, resulting in the new 10 scenic spots and the 3 review 10 scenic spots. The new 10 scenic spots include Wushan Heavenly Wind, Manlong Osmanthus Rain, Jade Emperor Flying Clouds, and Yunqi Bamboo Path. The 10 scenic spots of West Lake originally selected by the ancients include Su Causeway Spring Dawn, Winding Courtyard Lotus, Calm Lake Autumn Moon, and Broken Bridge Snow. Which naming style do you prefer? Some may prefer the former, but Yukai preferred the latter, so his visit was based on the ancient 10 scenic spots of West Lake. West Lake has 10 scenic spots, and the Su Causeway circumnavigates the scenery. To experience the beauty of West Lake, a walk along the Su Causeway is essential. When Yukai arrived at the Su Causeway, perhaps because it was still early, there weren't many tourists, but there were still quite a few people. Elderly men and women in training attire practice Tai Chi. Men and women in casual attire go jogging in the morning. And then there are tourists like Yukai, walking or cycling. Su Causeway is essentially a tree-lined avenue, a thoroughfare running north and south across West Lake. When Su Shi was the prefect of Hangzhou, he oversaw a massive dredging project. He had no place to store the massive silt. Eventually, he came up with the idea of using this silt to build a bridge across the lake. Later, in his memory, he named this area Su Causeway. Later, ornamental flowers and trees, such as magnolia, cherry blossoms, hibiscus, and sweet osmanthus, were planted along the avenue, creating a vibrant display of color year-round. The changing seasons, dawn and dusk, sunshine and rain, create a unique atmosphere and a changing scenery. Gradually, Su Causeway Spring Dawn became one of West Lake's 10 major scenic spots. Cycling along this path, a gentle breeze carries a refreshing fragrance. Pavilions abound on the right, while the left blends the water and sky. The scenery is so enchanting that one loses track of time. The Su Causeway is over 2,000 meters long. As Yukai rode, he could see the end of the causeway. No matter how much he reminisced about the scenery on the causeway, he couldn't extend the road by a few hundred meters. So he stopped the car and walked towards the lake. If you ignore the width of the road, then this place is actually the same as land. The area near the lake is especially suitable for fishing, But fishing has always been prohibited in West Lake. Even if someone fishes secretly, they dare not fish in this location. West Lake in March is gradually waking up, and the new willows are like smoke, waving around Yikai. The only bad thing is probably the mosquitoes. While strolling around West Lake these 2 days, a melody has been lingering in Yukai's mind, and it has gradually become clearer. He plans to write this song down after returning. At this time, the sound of beautiful musical instruments came from the distance. Yukai rode his bike about 100 steps forward and saw a pavilion opposite the Sioux Causeway. The pavilion was about 20 meters away from the edge of the Sioux Causeway. Inside, many elderly people, with an average age of around 60, were sitting, holding musical instruments, bamboo flutes, drum boards, erhu, yankin. In the middle of the pavilion stood 2 distinguished old men. Did they seem to be having a gathering of opera fans? Or were they all professional opera actors rehearsing some kind of performance? Pleasing music came from over there, and soon Yukai was surrounded by people watching the fun. This should be a unique opera in the Jiangnan area. Peking opera is not of this kind. Amid the music, an actress standing in the middle was about to start singing. As she opened her mouth, Yukai fell in love with this type of music. In front of the study door a branch of plum blossoms. Birds on the tree fighting each other, magpies chirping on the branches. I'm here to announce the good news to your brother Liang. Chapter 175 Wunong Soft Language. Chinese is one of the most widely spoken languages in the world, with one of the most complex dialectal variations. It includes Mandarin, Cantonese, Xiang, Hakka, Min, Gan, and Wu, among many others. Even when drunk, the Wu dialect is so charming. The soft Wu dialect. Yukai had read many books about Wu dialect and heard that reciting poetry in Wu dialect best captured its essence. But after several days in Hangzhou, he hadn't heard anyone speak a dialect. Not the shopkeepers, not the 2 girls at the B&B, not even the taxi drivers. The authentic Mandarin had accustomed Yukai to it, making him think Mandarin was the only language spoken here. But then, Yukai suddenly realized, this was Jiangnan. Where were the soft Wu dialects? This was different from Chengdu, where dialects were spoken everywhere. Even when outsiders visited the city's scenic spots, many self-employed entrepreneurs would communicate in Sichuan dialect. It seemed that only large tourist attractions, when hiring, would provide standardized Mandarin pronunciation training for their employees, or even require them to start speaking Mandarin. What about the dialects here? Yukai had some familiarity with the dialects of various regions of China. When he obtained the system, he also received a Chinese language reward for checking in on China. This reward primarily improved Yukai's understanding of the official language. This meant improving his Mandarin pronunciation and allowing him to recognize the characters passed down through China's 5,000-year history. The dialect issue would likely require more Chinese language rewards to resolve. However, this didn't prevent Yukai from understanding the opera. It was likely the story of Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai, a Hangzhou folk tale about Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai, who, after 3 years of schooling, return home to visit their family. Throughout the journey, Zhu Yingtai desperately tries to express her feelings to Liang Shanbo, yet refuses to admit she's a woman. The singing was charming and varied, with ups and downs, each word and gesture imbued with an ancient flavor. Yukai listened intently, knowing that after receiving so many rewards for learning about Chinese culture, he'd eventually have to attend an opera. After about 10 minutes, the music paused, and the crowd applauded enthusiastically. The 2 singers smiled and nodded to the audience, then quietly chatted with their companions. The short performance ended here. Yukai listened to the conversation of 2 people doing morning exercises on the Sioux Causeway. They were likely amateur opera fans, and having come here regularly to practice their instruments, they had gradually become familiar with each other. Occasionally, when they felt interested, they would arrange to perform together, record a video, and upload it online. Yukai continued riding his shared yellow scooter. His goal for today was to cycle around West Lake. He calculated the distance to be around 10 kilometers, and if he rode and explored, he could probably make it back to his guest house before dark. Just then, Yukai's phone buzzed with an incoming email. He turned on the screen and saw a string of English text. As Yukai had expected, it was a reply from a British publishing house. He had given up hope. His manuscript had already been rejected by 3 publishing houses in the past few days. If others had simply rejected it without even reading it, Yukai wouldn't have been so discouraged. But the editor at the publishing house had clearly reviewed Yukai's manuscript. Because Yukai's self-introduction claimed that his novel was a top-selling book in China last year, they took his novel so seriously. If a book didn't meet their expectations, even a novel that had been approved would be rejected. You're a best-selling author, writing a fairy tale. That's what they thought. Even though they considered this a flaw, Yukai saw it as the book's defining feature. With so many people raising this issue, Yukai began to wonder if the West had some hidden rules about genres. Perhaps something like children can't be the protagonists of adult books. Dear Sean, we've received your manuscript. Thank you for your support of Cambridge University Press. Please prepare the international copyright documents by April 30th. Is it approved? Just now, Yukai was prepared to accept another setback. The continuous stream of rejection letters over the past few days made him reflect on whether he had taken too big a step. Jumping directly from Chinese-language novels to international fantasy novels, the style changed so drastically that it was unrecognizable as the work of the same author. Magical style, should I wait a little longer before trying it? But after receiving confirmation from Cambridge University Press, Yukai cast all such doubts aside. Sometimes, people wait for just such a kind of confirmation. Yukai felt that the scenery of Westlake had become even more vibrant. Speaking of which, Yukai was no novice in cycling. When he was learning boxing, he met Jingyu's admirer, Song Fei, through her. He saw him every day when he and Jingyu were practicing downstairs. He was a master cyclist, and Yukai had learned a few moves from him in his spare time. While Yukai's learning ability was undeniable, he couldn't ride a fixed-gear bike to death in the park, but riding on the rugged mountain roads was more than enough for him to master the bike. After stopping and starting along the way, visiting several famous attractions on Westlake, Yukai circled the lake in the evening and returned to his guest house on Bishan Road. His thoughts weren't on romance or his books. Instead, he was thinking about the house he had seen earlier. The area around Westlake is a restricted area. Even renting a house and doing business on Bishan Road is very troublesome. But why did Yukai see people living by the lake? In that case, is it possible for him to? What's so good about a sea view room? The sea breeze is so strong and the seawater is corrosive. A good villa will become the same as a 20 or 30-year-old house in just a few years. A lake view room is what Yukai is pursuing now. After finding a place to park the shared yellow car, Yukai rang the doorbell in front of the B&B. A moment later, Joyu opened the door for Yukai. Did you have fun? Joyu asked. Yukai nodded and said, very good. The scenery here is so beautiful. By the way, I have a question. Don't people in Hangzhou speak Hangzhou dialect anymore? Why do I keep hearing Mandarin? A lot of people have worked in Hangzhou over the years, and for convenience, many have gotten used to speaking Mandarin. I'm the same. I only speak Hangzhou dialect with my family when I'm home. Yukai went inside and changed his shoes. Curiously, can you speak a few words of Hangzhou dialect? Hangzhou dialect? Sure enough, Joyu said, switching to her language naturally. Her voice was just as beautiful and melodious as Yukai had imagined. She poured hot water into a cup and said to Yukai, today, Niu made a long jinza. Yukai, figured it out. As the boiling water poured into the cup, the emerald green tea leaves swirled and expanded in the water. The unique aroma of Longjing tea filled the room. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.